What's up everyone, how are you all? Today we are back with another blazing Naruto story. What if Kakashi refuses to train Naruto for the Chunin exams? If you enjoy then please like, share and do comments. And also check the description to original creator of this beautiful creation. It was a usually busy day in the village hidden in the leaves. Why won't it when the Chunin exams were on and merchants from around the continent came to showcase and sell their goods? People could be seen in bars and stalls talking about the ongoing exams and who they thought had the possibility of winning. I'm telling you, Sasuke Uchiha is going to get through this exams like a walk in the park. One man said, clearly drunk, if the almost empty large cup of sake in front of him was any indication. After all, he is the last Uchiha and is being trained under Hitaki Kakashi. Say all you want, but I am going to place all my money on the Hyuga prodigy. A young man clearly in his late 20s said as he picked up a stick of dango and took a bite out of it and chewed. He is said to be the best in his graduating set and defeated the Hyuga princess in a matter of minutes, not to talk of him facing the demon brat in the finals as his first match, who clearly doesn't have any real skill and has been relying on his Uchiha teammate up to this point. He got through his preliminary match by dumb luck, but what is he going to do against someone whose eyes can see all 360 degrees? The man said, laying down his facts as he dropped the now empty dango stick back into its bowl and smiled. And I also heard the Uchiha's foe is also a Jinchuriki and a killing machine at that. Being the son of the Kage also means he would have received some special training from his father, right? The waitress who had come to drop the bill but got distracted listening to their discussion added in. Well, we can only wait for that day. The man who ate the dango said as he smiled and looked out to the busy street. Somewhere else, several identical blondes could be seen engaged in various activities. While some were trying to walk on trees, others were meditating or going through katas. These guys were called clones and their original was not too far off as he was doing push-ups. 134,135,136,137. The sweaty blonde voice rang out as he continued his exercise. He had no one to train him except an old perverted guy who only helped him undo what Orochimaru had done to him during their encounter in the Forest of Death and also managed to get him to sign a summoning contract with the Toads. But now he was all alone. His white-haired sensei was nowhere to be found. Refusing to resign to fate with determination to prove his opponent wrong, Naruto decided to train himself by learning chakra control exercises and improve his physical abilities. Since there was no one to teach him ninja techniques, he would have to at least dominate Neji in the department of endurance and physical strength. The young lad continued his training, not taking notice of the shadow watching him from the trees. Timeskip, 3 hours later. The sun had already set before Naruto fell to his butt, panting from his day's activities. He picked up his water container and took a large gulp from it. He then got up, picked up his jacket and headed for his apartment. As he passed through the marketplace, he took notice of the jovial nature of the people who seemed like they weren't going home soon and were ready to spend the night drinking. He scowled as he remembered this were the same people who chased him through this same market, with clubs and blades cursing his name and threatened to kill him because of his tenant. Naruto smiled as he remembered the first time he met the fox. What transpired was not something any of them had planned for. Flashback. Naruto and his team rested in their client's house after their battle on the bridge. Naruto had tapped into his tenant chakra and was still out due to the fatigue that came with it. Sasuke, his teammate, sat on the opposite bed beside him, bandaged up, as he closed his eyes and reminisced about what occurred on the battlefield and smiled as he remembered that he had unlocked his Sharingan. Kakashi and Sakura, his sensei and second teammate, were out with the bridge builder, but no one knew what was currently going on in their blonde teammate head. Naruto opened his eyes to see himself floating in what looked like a sewer. As he got up on his feet, he groaned. "Don't tell me we were captured," he said as he rubbed his forehead. "Don't be stupid, human. If you were captured you would be in a cell with chakra restraints, not in a sewer," a voice cried out. Who's that?" the blonde asked as he took a few steps back in preparation for a sneak attack. That was when he noticed them. Large jail doors that looked locked. "I guess you must really be an idiot, cause I can clearly see jail doors, meaning someone is locked in, though I wonder what was going through their minds when they built a jail that's about 100 times the height of a human," the blonde lad said as he fell back on his butt. "I say it once again, you are not in prison, rather you are the jailer. the voice said once again as it stepped into the light revealing its features. It was a fox clearly as tall if not taller than the Hokage Tower. Several appendages that Naruto guessed were its tail swung behind it. "Oh, so I guess you're the Kyuubi," the blonde said as he got up again. "You guess? Are you that stupid? What other evidence do you need to prove that I am the great Kyuubi?" the beast said as it growled. Yeah, keep talking but it doesn't change the fact that is out here and you are in there," the blonde said with a smirk. "Damn you! You retard!" the beast roared as it tried to reach for its container through the space provided by the bars, but alas he couldn't reach far. Naruto, seeing he was safe from its reach, took another good look at the creature. "Why?" he asked. "Why? Why what? Why did you attack Konoha?" "Because I felt like." "Really?" The fox said nothing else. "You know, for an ancient beast, you're not a very good liar," the blonde said as he got up. "I have practically been lied to all my life, so you can say I kind of developed a lie detector as a sixth sense. So tell me the truth, why did you attack?" the blonde said as he stepped closer to the jail bars. The fox chuckled as he looked at the human. "You got guts, kid, calling me a liar and still having the balls to come closer," the demon said as it closed its eyes and smiled. Naruto said nothing as he continued his slow movement towards the cage. The fox, seeing as his host said nothing, exhaled and opened his eyes. "You ever heard of a man called Uchiha Madara?" the fox started. "You guys know what happened, so I'm not going to bore you with a story you have watched and probably read a lot of times, so I'll skip it." Flashback end. He had finally understood the fox reasons, and over the past few months they had become friends, though not really close as they still had their differences, but the fox still helped him when he needed help with his training by pointing out a few things and when he also needed some advice. Where else to get advice than from the wrinkled mind of an ancient beast who had probably seen a lot of things. When you are done with your stupid reminiscing, you would want to know you are been surrounded with killer intent pouring out from the people watching you. Our hero snapped back to the present as he looked back at the bar and saw the men who were drinking glaring at him murderously. Naruto frowned and continued on his previous journey as he could still feel their eyes on him. "You know no one's around, you can make quick work of them using that technique," his tenant advised. "No need, after all it would soon be time," the lad replied as he dug out his keys and opened his door. He closed it and without switching on the lights he dropped his jacket and turned immediately and walked to his small kitchen and flipped the bulb switch to on. As he poured water into a kettle in order to brew tea, he closed his eyes and spoke to no one in particular. "When do I start learning real ninjutsu?" he said as he set out 2 cups and poured the hot water into them. "We start tomorrow. Get ready a small bag, we are going on a training trip," a voice answered as a figure stood up within the darkness of the living room and approached the kitchen cabinet with 2 red orbs glowing in the dark. It was now 3 weeks to the Chunin exams and our blonde hero could be seen packing a small bag. He zipped it up and slung it over his shoulders and walked towards his apartment door. On the way he picked up a sheet of paper covered in ink and took a look at it. He then folded it and put it into his pocket as he walked out and locked his door behind him. "Next destination, Hokage Tower," he said to himself. Somewhere else, the Uchiha Manor. A raven-haired lad could be seen running through katas as he drove hits into a training dummy. This was Sasuke Uchiha, and he was the last Uchiha in the village. His strength was fueled by his hate for his older brother and his desire to kill him. Despite the numerous loves shown to him by the villagers, he saw everyone as an obstacle to his true goal and so kept no friends. He spun with an overhead kick at the dummy and using the head of the dummy as a stepping stone, he launched himself into the air away from it and ran through hand seals and inhaled. "Fire style. Fireball jutsu," he said as he exhaled a very large fireball through his mouth at the dummy. He landed simultaneously. The same time the ball crashed into the training target and set it ablaze, destroying it into splinters. He panted and picked up his water container and took a sip out it. "Still not too good enough," he said as he eyed the still burning wood. He looked at the still rising sun and set his water bottle down. "Must be around 8 a.m. I still have an hour before meeting up with Kakashi," he said as he walked back into his house for a quick shower and breakfast. The Hokage Tower. Naruto got to the front of the Hokage's door and with a deep breath, he kicked open the door and announced his presence. "Hey Gigi, I need a favor," he said as he stood in front of the old man. "What is it, Naruto-kun? Don't you have training to do?" the old leader said as he looked up from some papers he was previously looking at. That's the thing, Gigi, since I have no one to train me for the Chunin finals, I need some time and privacy for myself to train where no one would be able to spy on me. Knowing my opponent, I would need to have some kind of technique and plan up my sleeve in order to beat him, so I would love it if you signed this permit for me to go train outside the village till the final day, he said as he removed the folded paper from his pocket and held it out to the cage. That's a nice idea, Naruto-kun, but I can ask where you intend to go? The cage asked as he collected the paper and signed it before applying his stamp on it. I don't plan on going far, just staying in the forest surrounding Konoha, he answered as he collected the paper back and pocketed it. All right then, I guess I'll see you in the next 3 weeks, the old man said as he reached out to his pipe for a quick smoke. Yes, Gigi, thanks for the permit, the lad said as he walked out. Location change, Konoha Barbecue Eatery. Sasuke stood in front of the barbecue eatery as he waited impatiently for Kakashi. That bastard can never take anything serious in his life, the raven-haired preteen said as he ignored another wave passing by girls gave him as soon as they saw him. He stood there for another 5 minutes before he spotted his blonde teammate walking towards his direction. Don't tell me Kakashi decided to train the both of us, that motherfucker, Sasuke swore as he continued to look at Naruto would continue in his direction. Once the distance between them was about 5 feet, Sasuke nodded as a form of greeting, his teammate nodded back. Kakashi decided to train you? Sasuke asked as Naruto stopped his movements. Sorry to disappoint you, but I'm actually on a self-training mission right now, Naruto answered. Very well, good luck, Sasuke said as he shifted to the right to create a path for Naruto to continue his trek. The blonde continued his walk but stopped once he heard his name again. Naruto, get strong, Sasuke said as he turned away from the blonde's direction. Naruto smiled and replied, you too, Sasuke. And with that the blonde headed for the gates, Kakashi arriving not too long after. All right my cute student, let's go, the silver-haired Chunin said as he led the way heading for a training ground with Sasuke following. Location change, Konoha's surrounding forest. Naruto had left the village and was now setting up camp as he waited for his sensei. He had waited for quite some time and was already getting bored, so he decided to create a clone army and have some sparring exercise. Kage Bunshin no Jutsu, he shouted as he put his fingers in a cross-hand symbol and created about 50 clones. Let's do this, he said as the clones nodded and dashed towards him. Naruto got into a stance and waited for the approaching foes. As soon as the first one got to him, he swept into action with a leg sweep using his left leg, and while that clone was still in the air falling to the ground, he brought up his right leg and kicked it in the chest, sending it flying towards a group of clones. He then blocked a punch from another clone and quickly grabbed the hand which the assaulting clone used to hit him and swung him, making him collide with 2 other clones. As soon as those 3 clones vanished, he jumped back to avoid a kunai that was thrown at him. What the hell, man, the original Naruto screamed as he looked at the direction where the kunai came from, trying to find the offending clone, but all he saw was a gathering group of grinning clones. Trying to take this up a notch, I see, he said as he put his left hand in his ninja pouch and brought out 2 kunais. Holding them with both hands, he took a step and dashed towards the clones that also held their kunais and dashed for him. Once the blonde original got to a few feet to his clones, he took a jump backwards and threw the 2 kunais at the incoming clone army. The clones, still on their run and seeing just 2 kunais which could never do a dent to their numbers, continue their approach, not noticing the shuriken hidden and flying beneath the left kunai approaching them. As the clones got to 2 feet of the incoming projectiles, they saw the original smile and run through seals. Ninja Arts. Shadow Shurinen clone technique. He said as all of a sudden the seemingly duo projectile suddenly transformed into about 100 shurikens heading for the clone army, who were now too close to dodge. With the annihilation of his clone army, Naruto sighed and moved to reach out to his water container, but quickly killed that idea as he felt someone watching him and looked up to see a single clone still alive. I guess not all my clones are reckless, he said as he got into a stance again. You know we are just a copy of you, the clone retorted back with a smirk as the original frowned. Come get me, the original said as he watched the clone. Without saying anything, the clone dashed at him at speeds which Naruto didn't know he had and jumped for an overhead kick. Naruto moved to block but winced from the pain of the kick. Now that's strength I didn't know I also had, Naruto said as he quickly moved to grab the clone's leg but couldn't as the clone also quickly switched assaulting limbs to his right arm and brought down his elbow on this boss head. Using his other arm, Naruto blocked the elbow attack and quickly jumped back creating distance between them. Damn! This is one really strong me, Naruto thought as he eyed the clone taking note that this one's complexion seemed darker than the rest. Why don't you come get me now? The clone said as it got into its previous stance. Naruto hissed and dashed for the clone channeling chakra to his feet to make him go faster but it seemed his clone could follow his movement because as soon as he got close, the clone threw out a right hook that connected with his face and moved to kick him with his left leg. But as soon as the kick almost connected, Naruto quickly used a substitution jutsu, replacing himself with a log preferring to watch and plan for the now annoying clone from his hiding place in the trees forming an ambush plan in case the clone comes looking for him. But it would seem his luck was not on his side, as the clone turned to his direction and smirked. Oh shit, Naruto cursed as he quickly jumped out of the tree into the air avoiding the kunai projectiles that was thrown at him. How the hell is my clone dominating me in battle? The blonde cried out as he landed on the ground facing the clone. The clone said nothing and ran through seals. Let's see what you can do, the clone said as it completed it hand signs. Huh, what are you talking? Naruto could not complete his sentence as the next words he heard made his jaw drop. Wind style. Great breakthrough. The clone said as he exhaled a gust of wind at the original. When the hell did I learn that? The original said as he crossed his hands in front of him and jumped back with a chakra-enhanced jump to get out of the firing zone. He landed safely though he suffered a slight hit from the wind attack and glared at the clone. You are not one of me, are you? The blonde original asked as he rubbed his arms and got into another stance. Took you too long to realize, the clone said as it also got into a stance. So who the fuck are you then? The original cursed as he dashed for the unknown opponent now. Rather than answering his question, the clone answered with another question. Are you ready for your ninjutsu training? The clone asked as it ran through seals again watching the approaching original with a smirk. What the, sensei? Naruto who had already taken a leap towards the foe questioned as he swore. Fuck, I should have known. Fire style. Fireball technique, the clone cried out as it exhaled a large fireball the size of a small house at his still airborne student who could only swear at his incoming fate. Damn you sensei. It was the D-Day and the battle arena was packed to the brim. People could be seen in groups placing bets on the competitor who they all thought would win. Obviously fighters like Sasuke and Gaara had the highest amount of votes with Neji falling in third. The third Hokage could be seen watching the interactions with a smile as he waited for the fighters to assemble on the battlegrounds. So far everyone was present except Naruto and Sasuke. Knowing Kakashi, he is probably the reason why Sasuke is late, but Naruto, he should know his matches first, the Kage thought as he looked to his left acknowledging the presence of the Raikage who just came in and sat on the left of the Kage. I trust your journey was smooth, Raikage Dono? The Kage asked his fellow leader as they all tuned their sights back to the competitors. Indeed, Kage Dono, he answered. I don't see the Uchiha here. I suppose there has to be a reason as to why he is late, considering the fact as he is the only competitor who isn't here, the Raikage asked the Hokage. I suppose too, though his sensei is Kakashi who is well known for his habitual lateness, so I won't be surprised if that is the reason he is running late, the Fire Shadow answered. Though he isn't the only one late, Naruto Uzumaki his teammate is also late, the Hokage added. I suppose it's also Kakashi-san's fault, right? The Raikage asked. Actually, Naruto decided to train himself but he took a trip outside the village. I suppose he would be here anytime soon. The Hokage replied as he looked at the battleground and nodded at the proctor who nodded back at him in understanding. Isn't that your Jinchuriki? The Kage asked with curiosity evident in his eyes. Yes, though I am surprised you knew about his identity, the Hokage answered back. I do my research when moving out of my comfort zone and beside it was not hard to not hear the floating sound of demon when people spoke his name. Considering the fact my son is also a Jinchuriki I know what statements like that mean. He answered back with a smirk. The Hokage said nothing as he turned his head back to face the competitors and stood up to make his opening speech. We have gathered here once again like we do every 6 months to witness the battle royale in which all major and minor villages come together in unity to have from which we determine who is worthy of becoming a Chunin. A Chunin is someone capable of leading a team, and so competitors. I want you to keep in mind that even though you lose your first match, the probability of your village head making you a Chunin is still high, as we don't just value power level, but your ability to think in battle. And with this I declare the tournament open, he said as he took his seat, ignoring the claps and jubilation of the audience. Where are you, Naruto-kun? He thought as the proctor sent the other competitors to the stands, leaving only Neji, whose match was first. Uzumaki, Naruto, can you please come down to the floor? The proctor called out as Neji stood patiently with a proud smile. Hearing no response, the proctor called out again, Naruto Uzumaki, you have just a minute to get onto the field, after that you are disqualified, the proctor said out loud again. Up in the stands, the rookie 9-Sasuke and Naruto could be seen talking among themselves. That Naruto baka, don't tell me he overslept, Sakura said as she frowned. Speaking of Naruto, I haven't seen him for a while, Shikamaru said as he leaned against the wall and folded his arms. Sakura, when last did you see him? He asked the pink-haired girl. I haven't seen him since after the preliminaries, she answered. I guess he must have been pretty occupied with training, considering who his opponent is, a fat chubby boy added in as he rushed a bag of potato chips. Do you guys think he has a chance against Neji? I mean, he is called the Hyuga prodigy for a reason and was the best in his class? Compared to Naruto, who was the worst in ours, I think this Neji guy is taking the win, a blonde female spoke up. I believe Naruto would win Ino, after all he beat me. A boy with wide look carrying a puppy on his head, replied the blonde girl. Whatever, Kiba, the blonde girl replied. Through all this discussion, a pale-eyed girl remained quiet and clasped her hands, hoping nothing bad had happened to her blonde crush. The battlefield. Naruto Uzumaki, you have 20 seconds more, the proctor cried out as he waited patiently with the Hyuga prodigy. Shows I was right. He was always destined to be a loser, Neji said as he closed his eyes, waiting for the timer to finish counting down. 10 seconds more. 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, Fu. The proctor stopped his counting as everyone could hear rapid steps approaching. Neji opened his eyes as he looked towards the entrance. It sounded like someone was running and he had a feeling it was his opponent. Sorry I was late, I got lost on the road of life, a voice said, borrowing a line from a familiar person book as he appeared at the foot of the stands. Somewhere unknown, Kakashi could be seen reading his porn as Sasuke sat on a rock meditating. He then suddenly sneezed. Sasuke opened an eye and said, "Take your cold somewhere else. I don't want to get catarrh before my match of fighting a sand user." Kakashi smiled and just replied, "I feel like I was just robbed," as he flipped his page. Sasuke said nothing and continued meditating. You sure the Chunin exams hasn't started? Pretty sure I heard 10 a.m. is start time, the raven-haired asked. Nope, you misheard. Very sure I heard 11:30 a.m., Kakashi replied, flipping over another page. The exam arena. I was pretty sure you weren't going to make. You still keep trying to defile fate, Neji said as he sized up his opponent. Sorry about that. Woke up a bit late and had to have a quick shower before sprinting all the way here, Naruto replied the prodigy. Whatever, I hope you came prepared to lose, not that you need prepare, it has already been destined, Neji retorted back. Naruto said nothing and got into his stance. In the stands, Hinata could be seen spotting a smile that indicated relief as her blonde crush made it, but a frown of worry soon overcame it as she hoped he would be okay, knowing her cousin was always brutal on people he didn't like. I need it, the idiot overslept, Sakura said as a small smile was evident on her lips, showing she was pleased he made it. Does that mean Sasuke overslept? Choji asked, but was quickly silenced with 2 huge knocks on his head courtesy of his blonde teammate and his pink-haired colleague that sent him into a reunion with the earth. Sasuke-kun doesn't oversleep, they both said with flames of anger in their eyes as they stood over the fallen boy, who started crying chibi tears as he felt the 2 lumps of pain on his head. Will you guys stop? The match is about to start, Shino said. Battlefield. Naruto and Neji stood before each other as they said nothing. One looked at the other with a smile while the other a frown. First match, Neji Hyuga vs Naruto Uzumaki, begin. Now, the proctor said as he jumped back to get out of the battle space. Naruto took a few steps back and dropped into his stance again. Ready or not, here I come, he said as he kicked off heading at high genin speeds towards his opponent. He is still slower than Lee, I won't need my Byakugan to finish this, Neji thought as he dropped into his Jukin stance, keeping his eye on the approaching blonde. Don't think I am worth your dojutsu, Naruto said as he appeared behind Neji. Neji's eyes widened as he felt a chill when he saw the Naruto in front of him fade and heard his opponent's voice behind him. How did he escape my line of sight? Neji thought as he took a trip to the other side of the field courtesy of a kick to the chest by his foe. In the stands, Neji wasn't the only one who was stunned by the quick change of speed of the blonde prankster. Well, that's new, Shikamaru said as he saw Neji soar through the air, landing hard on his back. Seems like Naruto has a chance, Ino said as they continued to focus on the match. Battlefield. Neji got up and scowled at the blonde. You are still trying to fight fate, Neji said as he dusted his shorts and put his right hand into the ram sign. Byakugan, he said as he got into his Jukin stance again. I will admit I never expected your change of speed, but that's the last time I am going to get hit, he said as he glared dangerously at the blonde. Now come, he finished as he dashed at the blonde. Naruto said nothing and dashed towards the approaching Neji. The two met at the center and started trading blows. Neji seemed to be the one dominating in the taijutsu battle, but Naruto's stamina and endurance kept him going. Do you think you can beat a Hyuga in a battle of taijutsu? You're more stupid than I thought, Neji said as he hit Naruto's left arm with a Jukin strike. Shit, that hurt more than I thought it would, the blonde cursed as his opponent took advantage of his momentary distraction and landed two quick hits on his right arm and sent him flying off with a palm strike to the chest. That's payback for last time, Neji said as he smirked arrogantly at the blonde, who got up slowly with his arms hanging limply at his sides. It's over, I have sealed off the chakra points in your arms. You are not going to be able to use them effectively for a while, Neji said at the blonde, who glared at him. Oi, Kyuubi, what's the delay? Naruto thought as he frowned at the Hyuga. Give me a second, brat, the nine-tailed beast replied. Naruto sighed as he felt the Kyuubi's chakra flowing through his arm, reopening the closed points. He flexed his arms as he felt life coming back into them. Neji raised an eyebrow as he spotted what seemed like red chakra flowing through the blonde's arms. He frowned as he saw the blonde flex his arms and smile at him. Guess you really love punishment, Neji said as he dashed at the blonde again, who also dashed for him. On the way, Naruto made a clone and both dashed for Neji, the clone slightly ahead of the original. As soon as they got to about 7 feet to Neji, the clone jumped back and threw a shuriken at him. Shadow Shuriken clone technique, the clone yelled as the projectile multiplied into about 100, all heading for the Hyuga. This caused Neji to stop in his tracks and channeled chakra to his feet as he tried to jump back to avoid the incoming blades, but cursed as his Byakugan spotted another Naruto behind him. Wind style. Great breakthrough, Naruto cried as he exhaled a large gush of wind at the foe, trapping him on both sides. Neji, seeing as he was trapped between a rock and a hard wall, had no other choice but to use the move he had been saving for opponents like Sasuke and Gaara. Kaden, he cried out as he spun, expelling a shield of chakra that caused the projectiles to bounce off once they came into contact with it and the wind attack not to affect him. In the stands, the Hyuga's sitting area. How does he know that technique? One of the Hyuga elders whispered at Hiashi, who frowned when he saw the technique. Hisashi, your son is truly a prodigy to have mastered that technique at a young age, Hiashi thought. The genin stand. I thought he was never going to use that technique, Ten whispered. The flames of Neji's youth burns brighter than ever. A young boy in green spandex and bushy brows holding onto a pair of crutches cried out. Yes, Lee, and we are going to make sure our flames continue to burn, an older man who looked like the identical twin of the temporary crippled boy said as he gave a thumbs up with a 10 gigawatt smile. Yes, Guy-sensei, after this I will make sure I run around Kahona 50 times on one hand, Lee said as he cried chibi tears. Are they serious? Tamari face-palmed, wondering if the leaf was full of weird people. Battlefield. As Neji's defensive spin slowed down, Naruto dropped a smoke pellet, covering the entire field with smoke. The audience became upset and started booing, complaining they couldn't see the match and that Naruto refused to fight like a man. Your stupidity continues to baffle me. Trying to use a smokescreen against the Byakugan, Neji said as he spotted Naruto's chakra glowing like born fire in a dark clouded night in the screen. But his joy was short-lived as he spotted numerous chakra of the same kind appearing. Damn clones, he said, unable to find out who the original was. Well, no need, they will still face the same hands of fate, he said as he saw all the chakras starting to approach him from all sides. Neji got into his Jukin stance again and started attacking as soon as they got to him, delivering palm strikes and dispelling them, but his chain of attacks stopped when a kunai grazed him on his left cheek. Neji slapped a hand over his injury, jumping back away from the enemies as he was no longer starting to feel safe in the smoke. How did he know of the Hyuga's blind spot, or was it just pure luck? Neji thought as he saw the enemies approaching once more. Fuck this, Neji cursed as he got into position. Kaden, he screamed as chakras started spinning around him again, dispelling the clones that got close and started to clear out the smoke, creating a clear view of the battlefield, ignoring the shouts of approval that came in with it from the crowd. Seems he was right, the Byakugan isn't all seen, Naruto thought as he dispelled his clones with Neji turning to face him. So you decide to show the real you? Neji said as he clenched his fists. I would like to let you know that kunai wasn't a mistake, but it's time to finish this, Naruto said with a smirk. Neji knew what Naruto meant and growled as the blonde approached him. He got into his Jukin stance, and as soon as the blonde got close, Neji smirked. It's over, was the thought that ran through the head of every Hyuga present as they knew what was coming next. You are in my field of fire, 8 trigrams 64 palms. Neji cried out as he dashed at Naruto. 2 palms, 4 palms, 8 palms, 16 palms, 32 palms, Neji said as he delivered strikes after strikes, the crowd cheering him on. 64 palms, Neji said as he finished his combo attack, smirking, but it was short-lived as the assaulted Naruto dispelled, revealing he was a clone. Shit, where is he? Neji cursed as he scanned around with his Byakugan. Right, left, below, above, wait, don't tell me, Neji said as his eyes widened in realization, but it was far too late. The kunai that was thrown previously burst into smoke, revealing the real Naruto smirking. He now knew what he truly meant. While the kunai was thrown at his blind spot, the kunai's position was calculated, remained in his blind spot when he turned to face what he thought was the real Naruto. Got you, he said as he ran through seals. Wind style. Wind dragon technique, he said as he exhaled a large wind which took the form of a dragon and headed for Neji, who had started another defensive spin, but the effects of trying to use Kaden a third time kicked in, allowing the wind technique break through, and Neji had the full blunt of the attack as he was carried across the field and crashed into the wall. I don't believe it, I lost, Neji said as he fell hard to the ground, bleeding all over. Medics, the proctor shouted as he rushed to Neji's side and checking his pulse, sighing as he found out he was still alive. The medics came in and carried Neji out on a stretcher, with the proctor declaring Naruto a winner. Nobody clapped or booed. Nobody expected that outcome. Neji was dominating the match, how the hell did he lose? Naruto walked up to where the genins were standing and grinned. Hey guys, what do you think? He asked. Nice match, Naruto, though I'll admit I didn't think you would win, Shikamaru said as the others nodded, showing they agreed, even Kiba, who once said he knew Naruto would win. Shikamaru, Nara and Subaku Tamari, please report to the battlefield. The proctor cried out, causing the boy to sigh and considered giving up if not for death threats from Ino, which caused him to walk down to meet his opponent. Congratulations on your match, Naruto-kun, Hinata said as she turned red as soon as Naruto turned to her and started grinning. Thanks, Hinata-chan, Naruto replied as he turned back to the match. No one might not have known it, but Hinata had betted on Nato winning, and now that she was stocked up with cash from her winnings, she started considering asking him out on a date after the exams. Hajime, the proctor cried out as the second match started. So far the Chunin exams were going good. Everything was going exactly as planned, except the fact that Sasuke was nowhere to be found for his match against Gaara, and normally while that would mean him getting disqualified, he had the special honor of being the last Uchiha, and the fact his match was one of the most anticipated, with many of the nobles present commenting that he was mostly the reason they came to see the exams. His match was postponed. Right now, the battle between Shikamaru and Tamari just ended, with Shikamaru managing to lure the blonde girl into a trap and then quitting at the end when it was obvious he could have ended the match in his favor, his reasons being he was low in chakra, But that was the opposite of what his teammate, Ino, thought as she growled at the pineapple hair-shaved boy muttering under her breath about purging lazy people. Kenshino Aburame and Kankuro Shubaku moved down to the battlefield. The proctor called out as the crowd quieted down from their shouts from the previous match. "Actually, Proctor-san, I give up," Kankuro spoke out as he spotted his opponent who had already started walking down the stairs to the field. "Peeved, coward," Kiba whispered as Shino came back up to join them, the proctor announcing him as the winner by default. "And you would think he had something to show considering the stunt he pulled the first day we met him," Sakura said to Naruto, who said nothing but nodded in acknowledgement. Kankuro scowled as he had a feeling the Leaf Ninjas were talking about him. While he would have loved to go down there and show them his might, he needed to reserve his skills and energy for what was coming next. Unlike Gaara and Tamari, he was a puppet user, meaning he was the one with the least number of techniques in his arsenal. It wouldn't be good if the enemy knew all of his attacks before the right time to use them came. "Sasuke Uchiha and Gaara Shubaku, please make your way down to the battlefield," the proctor called out as Gaara grew a devilish grin. It was time to get some blood for mother. As soon as Gaara appeared on the battlefield, the crowd burst into cheers as Sasuke appeared with Kakashi via Shushin. "See Sasuke, I told you we were early, looks like it's just starting," Kakashi said as he patted Sasuke's head much to the disdain of the Uchiha, while misinterpreting the cause for the crowd's cheering. "Actually, Kakashi-san, you are really late. His match was postponed once. If he didn't make it this time, he would have been probably disqualified, Genma," the proctor answered the one-eyed shinobi. "Really?" Kakashi asked. "Yup," Genma answered with a straight face. Kakashi said nothing as he smiled while scratching his head sheepishly, borrowing back a gesture from his student while ignoring the death glare been sent at him from his other male student. No wonder you can't get laid," Sasuke said as he walked away from Kakashi's side towards Gaara. "You would probably be 2 hours late to your fuck appointment." Kakashi said nothing again as he sweat dropped at the statement and wished his cute student good luck and shushined to the stands, avoiding a punch from his final student as she yelled how he almost got her Sasuke disqualified. "Play music. This is War Thousand-Foot Crutch. Are you ready to satisfy mother?" Gaara said as sand started pouring out of his gourd. I hope you can meet up to the standards of an Uchiha," Sasuke said as he tightened his armbands, glaring at the really crazed boy. "Final match of Stage 1, Sasuke vs Gaara. Begin," the proctor said as he jumped to give way for the impending battle. Sasuke wasted no time in dashing for the Jinchuriki, impressing the crowd with his new speed as he got to Gaara's position in a few seconds and went for a kick to the head, but Gaara's sand rose to block against the kick. Sasuke spun in the air using the sand as a platform and using his other leg attempted the same attack on the other side of Gaara but met up with the same result. Sasuke jumped back as the sand moved to grab him and threw 3 kunais tagged with paper bombs at the foe. Boom! Sasuke stood still on alert as he waited to see the results. If he learned anything from Lee's match against Gaara, it was that the redhead had a very annoying defense which could switch into offense at any time or could be both. The Genin stands. Sasuke seems to have a tremendous increase in speed and reflexes, Shikamaru pointed out. "He should be as fast as Lee with his weights on," Kakashi said with pride evident in his eyes. "Sasuke-san's flames of youth are burning so bright," Lee cried out. "The cage seeds." Sarutobi smiled at the display as he was impressed. "A little increase in speed isn't going to keep him alive for long," the cage said. "After all, Gaara is known to have killed Junins," he finished. "Well, don't doubt the power of the Leaf Ninjas," Sarutobi said back. The battlefield. Sasuke didn't have wait long as the smoke cleared to show a wall of sand protecting the redhead from the explosion. "Fuck," Sasuke cursed as he jumped to the side, activating his Sharingan as his opponent's sand moved for him. He continued to jump around, evading the sand waves that his opponent controlled from his spot. Sasuke then took a large leap into the air over Gaara as he ran through seals and inhaled. "Fire style. Fireball technique," Sasuke said as he exhaled a very large fireball which headed for his opponent at fast speeds. The sand which was going after him drew back as it gathered to defend against the fire attack. Sasuke seen an opening, dashed for his opponent appearing behind him and attempted to elbow him from behind but met resistance again as sand came up and blocked the attack. Sasuke jumped back as the sand came at him running through seals again. Fire style. Fire dragon technique. He roared as flames in the shape of a dragon spewed out of his mouth colliding with the sand. Sasuke kept the flames going as the sand blocked his flame, part of the sand collapsing as it turned to glass. Gaara, seeing his opponent was being a nuisance, flicked his fingers. Sand senbon. He whispered as his sand rose up to form thin needles that rushed for the unsuspecting opponent. Sasuke, who was already running out of air, eyes widened as from the corner of his left eye his Sharingan traced a thin projectile which flew past him, nearly hitting the left side of his face. Sasuke channeled chakra to his feet and jumped back, stopping his flame throw as the fire died down to reveal numerous sand senbons coming at him. Using his Sharingan, Sasuke started dodging and jumping the projectiles, a few grazing him as he whipped out 2 kunais and blocked a few. The genin stands. He is able to use a B-rank technique for that long. He's good, Kurenai admitted as she unknowingly increased Kakashi's ego, whose mad grin was hidden by his mask. Battlefield. Let's get serious, Sasuke yelled at Gaara as he again channeled chakra to his feet, and within the twinkle of an eye, he zoomed for Gaara, speeding past the senbons as he threw the some shurikens at Gaara and ran through seals. Shadow Shurinken clone technique. Sasuke said as his shurikens multiplied into multiple dozens heading for Gaara. Gaara's sand rose up to block the numerous objects. Sand bullets. Gaara said as part of his sand transformed into balls and rushed at high speeds towards Sasuke, who jumped to the side repeatedly to avoid the balls, not stopping in his mad dash for Gaara. Gaara, seeing his attack didn't stop his opponent in his tracks, formed an hand sign. Sand tsunami. Gaara yelled as sand rose, towering over Sasuke, clearly reaching the same height as the surrounding walls. Sasuke stopped in his tracks as he frowned at the incoming sand. The sand covered almost the entire width of the field as it started coming down. Sasuke cursed as he became surrounded by sand on all sides. You fly, giant sand burial! Gaara yelled as he slammed his hands on the ground, shockwaves erupting from his palms and spreading across the field as the sand pressed down on the spot Sasuke was. Ha! I told you I would crush you, Gaara yelled with a maniac look on his face. Whispers erupted in the crowd as they expressed concern over Sasuke's well-being. The genin stands. Tears threatened to burst out of Sakura and Ino's eye as they witnessed the death of Sasuke. Their comrades frowned at the scene. While they didn't really like Sasuke, he was still their classmate and a partner. Cage seats. The cage frowned at the scene. That damn brat. The leader cursed underneath his breath. Battlefield. The proctor walked back to the field as he frowned at the sand genin. The match had ended in a way he would have not preferred it to, but this genins had signed a death contract when they applied for the Chunin exams. As Gaara turned to face the proctor, already retrieving his sand, he found out he couldn't move as something had grabbed his legs. What the? Gaara thought as he looked down to see 2 hands grabbing his legs, and the next thing he knew he was buried up to his neck in the ground as his dead opponent appeared before him smirking. Double suicide decapitation. Sasuke said he has lifted up a foot with the intention of knocking out his opponent with a kick to the head, ignoring the cheers that erupted from the crowd. You were a good match, but still no match for an Uchiha, Sasuke said as he swung his foot towards Gaara's head but met opposition as sand rose to block the kick. Sasuke frowned as he jumped back, severally watching as sand seeped out of the ground where Gaara was buried. As Gaara rose up from his hole aided by the sand. Mother is really screaming for your blood, Gaara yelled as his sand started pouring out of his gourd. Sasuke smirked, revealing several thin wires that traveled from his mouth to the legs of Gaara, revealing they were tied at his ankles as he ran through seals and put his hands over his mouth. Fire style. Dragon fire technique. Sasuke said as he exhaled. A stream of flames traveled through the lines at a fast pace towards Gaara, who couldn't form a sand defense in time and ended up getting caught in the fire attack. Sasuke smiled as he watched the flames burn. As the fire died, Sasuke's smile dropped as he saw what looked like a cocoon of sand forming to surround his opponent. Sand rose above the cocoon to take the form of a small sphere which became a perfect eye that seemed to be watching Sasuke. Sasuke dashed for the cocoon with a kunai in hand but jumped back as spikes protruded from the sand cocoon. Kai, Sasuke said as a faint boom was heard inside the cocoon. The sand shield fell apart, revealing a slightly mutated Gaara whose footwear was burned off, revealing Sasuke must have pasted a paper bomb underneath his sandals when he grabbed him. His right arm was completely disproportional and made of sand. The right sand of his face was sand with his right eye transformed. "Make me feel alive, Uchiha!" Gaara yelled as he moved for Sasuke, the Uchiha dashing to the side to avoid the large arm as Gaara moved to grab him. "Sand bullet!" Gaara yelled as hundreds of sandballs left his sand arm, heading for Sasuke at breakneck speed. Sasuke jumped backwards, avoiding the bullets as he landed on the wall, and with a pump of chakra to his feet blasted off the wall towards the deranged foe as he threw a kunai with paper bomb at him. The Jinchuriki caught the kunai with his transformed hand and the bomb exploded in it. "Time to use that technique," Sasuke whispered as he ran through seals. "I'll kill you," Gaara yelled as he ran for the Uchiha. Lightning danced around Sasuke's left arm as he gripped it with his right arm. The lightning erupted and covered his hand up to his wrist as it produced chirping sounds. Sasuke's Sharingan tomos started spinning as he dashed for the approaching foe as the lightning tore through the ground. Gaara yelled as he cocked his mutilated arm back for a punch. "Chidori!" Sasuke yelled as he threw his arm forward. Both lightning and sand collided in a struggle for dominance. "Arg!" Sasuke yelled as he pumped more chakra into the jutsu, making it crackle more dangerously as his attack won the struggle, slicing through the sand defense like hot knife through butter through Gaara's arm into his right shoulder. All eyes looked in shock as Sasuke's arm was lodged in Gaara's shoulder. Gaara said nothing as his eyes followed the flow of an unfamiliar scarlet liquid from his shoulder down his right arm onto the ground, followed by an unknown sensation in his shoulder. "Arg, it's my blood!" Gaara yelled as he moved back, dislodging Sasuke's arm from his shoulder and gripped his shoulder in anger and pain. "I'll kill you!" Gaara yelled as sand moved to cover his body, making him grow bigger. Boom! The sound was heard from the cage's seating area as hell broke loose. The Hokage could be seen standing against the cage in a defensive position as sand ninjas started pouring into the arena. "Are we under an attack?" Guy asked his fellow Junins as his eyes widened, viewing the audience. Genin and those ranked below were all asleep as a result of a strange technique. "Seems like the sand are betraying us and we are going to be in bigger trouble if that thing reaches its final form," Kakashi said as he pointed at the enraged Gaara, who was leaving the arena for the village with his siblings behind while he and the other Junins tried to wake up the sleeping Genins. They were successful in getting them to wake up and divided them into teams. "Is he a Jinchuriki?" Kurenai asked. "Yes, and a crazy one at that," Kakashi answered, ignoring the looks of confusion that were thrown at him from the awoken Genins. "Huh? Kakashi-sensei, what do you mean he is a Jinchuriki?" Sakura tried asking. "Choji, Sakura and Hinata." Kakashi started ignoring the question, much to the annoyance of the pink-haired shinobi. "Look for any injured civilian or shinobi and move them to the hospital. 10-10, Kiba and Ino, head for the academy and move the students to the safety bunker. Naruto, Shikamaru and Shino, you three are to ensure the safety of the other two teams." Kakashi finished as he spotted Sasuke leaving in the same direction Gaara headed for. "Okay, we got that, except we have one problem," Shino answered. "And what's that?" Kakashi asked. "Where is Naruto?" Shikamaru asked. Kakashi looked round and sure enough the blonde enigma was nowhere to be found. Kakashi's eyes widened as he found out he couldn't remember ever waking up the ninja. Does this mean Naruto probably left before the invasion? Kakashi thought. Change of plans, Shikamaru and Shino, you are to back up Sasuke Uchiha and make sure he doesn't get killed. You are free to use force if he refuses to withdraw from fighting the Gaara once things go south. Kakashi said. The two boys nodded and they all took off to do their assigned missions, leaving only the team instructors who were soon surrounded by sand ninjas. What do you say, Kakashi? Up for another challenge? Guy asked as he stood back to back with Kakashi. What can I say, but you are on, Kakashi replied as he uncovered his Sharingan eye. Let's do this, Konoha forever, Guy said as he put his hands in a X-cross before him and ran for his first victims. Konoha forever, the surrounding Junins yelled as they repeated the same action Guy had done and also dashed to join the battle. Naruto landed quietly on the roof of the Hokage Tower and bent over immediately. While everyone was engaged in battle, so there was no need to crawl about, He still didn't want to be spotted by passing shinobi's worst-case Anbu ranked. God knows he would be in deep shit if that happened. Alright Kyuubi, scan the area for any negative emotion, Naruto thought to the fox as he stayed on his knees watching the battles that were going on in front of the tower. After a while, he got a reply. The place is clear. Seems even the hidden Anbu in there all moved out for battle, though I doubt the place isn't rigged with traps, the nine-tailed fox said. Naruto nodded and crawled to the edge of the roof. With quick flexibility he gripped the edge of the roof and swung into the Hokage's office through the window. He landed silently on his feet and looked around, taking in the fact that despite the raging invasion happening outside, this place still had a homely feeling to it. After all, it was one of the few safe places he could run to when he was attacked by the angry mob. But he hadn't come here to relate with the old man, not after his second meeting with the fox. Flashback. Team 7 walked through the village gates after the completion of their first A-rank mission. They all needed rest and Kakashi knew it, but he insisted that they first go report to the Hokage. With a lot of groaning from the blonde and Pinky with a little bit of HN from the raven-haired, Team 7 headed for the Hokage Tower to report their mission. Time skip. Naruto groaned and exhaled as he fell on his bed, obviously tired, which was kind of strange considering the blonde was usually the hyperactive type. Their meeting with the Hokage had gone on longer than he hoped, with the old man asking Kakashi to give an oral report of the mission details, then later telling him to submit a written report before the end of the week. The only good side was that they received their pay. Naruto hugged his pillow and exhaled again as he felt sleepy. Wow, you grew while I was gone, Naruto whispered as he observed the plant he was growing in a pot on his windowsill and closed his eyes, but quickly opened them again as he felt suddenly cold. Naruto looked around and saw he was in a strangely familiar dark sewer, and he was lying in what he hoped wasn't shitty water created from the thoughts that went through his head daily. You again, a voice snarled out. Naruto looked over to his left and spotted his tenant. More like his soulmate, after all they were meant to be together till his death. How are you doing? Naruto replied. What are you doing here? The Kyuubi asked, in anger evident in his eyes. While he hated humans normally, the two groups he hated the most were the Uchihas and Uzumakis, mainly because of their ability to subdue tailed beasts. While Hashirama of the Senju was also of the same case, he was the only one known to have his wood release among his clan members, so his hatred for the Senju didn't run as deep as the ones for the Uzumaki and Uchihas. I don't know, you tell me, Naruto retorted back. The Kyuubi frowned at the fearless lad who reminded him strangely of someone, though he doubted the kid could ever be like him. Don't think because I was chatty with you during our first meeting that we are friends, because I really want to kill you right now, Kyuubi said as he growled at the blonde. Naruto, who had a look of defeat on his face, threw his hands in the air. Really? After the brave front I put up, I thought you would be like, I like your courage. Let's be friends. You know the way it is with other powerful creatures when they meet a human, the lad said as he grinned the fox. No, that's just you reading and listening to junk at the academy when you were supposed to be training. Perhaps if you did that I won't be embarrassed by my failure of a container, QB growled. What? Naruto screamed as he shook his fists at the fox. At least I am not the one in a cage. Even though I am in a cage, I still have more pride than you, the QB said. What do you mean? Naruto asked. You have been abused and ignored all your life, and yet you still walk around with that hideous smile. While you go around playing pranks as some form of retribution, I hope. The fact you walk around with that hideous grin sprouting shit about being Hokage and protecting this same people disgusts me. The QB snarled out at the now still genin. Naruto smiled and looked at the nine-tailed beast. So what if I refuse to hate them? I'll make everyone one of them acknowledge me, especially Sakura-chan. The blonde said as he put on his happy grin with his eyes closed, not seeing the QB recoil in distaste. Spare me the acknowledgement garbage. We both know you have that dark side that grows stronger daily. As long as you remain in this village, that dark you will emerge and he will be my avatar. I will start with blowing up this pitiful village and move in search of Uchiha Madara, the QB said as it grinned maniacally. Nonsense. I will never allow the destruction of Konoha. As the future Hokage, I swore to protect this village, so whoever that wants to destroy this village will have to go through Uzumaki Naruto first, Naruto said as he clenched his fists. Ha 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 ha, the QB laughed. I hope you know when he reveals himself, He is going to be the dark copy of you with all your memories and fighting skills. Plus I have been strengthening his development with a little bit of my chakra. I hope you can back up your words when the time comes. Doesn't matter, it is my Nindo to never give up and win. And I have Kakashi sensei and Oldman Sarutobi, they are strong ninjas, they will definitely be able to stop me. Naruto said with resolve evident in his voice. 2 Hokages could barely stop me when I was in rampage mode as a result of Madara's genjutsu. What makes you think 1 Hokage and a Chunin will stop me when I am thinking intelligently? With a little bit of development, I should be able to make an army of full-cloaked 9 Tails clones who will be able to launch multiple fully charged tailed beast bombs, Kyuubi replied back. Tailed beast bomb? Naruto asked in confusion. It's a tailed beast ultimate attack. A low-charged one is capable of wiping out your Hokage mountain. Kyuubi replied, ignoring the stars that appeared in the blonde genin eyes as he heard about the destruction power of the technique. Naruto clenched his fists more tightly as he frowned. Perhaps do you think this people will accept you as Hokage? Once your hatred and anger gets to its peak and my avatar separates from you. Assuming you do defeat the both of us, do you think the villagers will start to accept you or fear you more? Memories created 12 years ago haven't been forgotten and people fear and hate you. Creating another incident like that will intensify their fear and anger, and this time even your so-called precious people will join them. Humans are such fragile creatures, they go through a bad experience once and forever live in regret and panic for the rest of their lives. The Kyuubi added. Naruto said nothing as he thought about the Kyuubi words. The fox was right and he knew it, but his stubborn mind wouldn't want to accept it. He could become Hokage, he was already a genin, he only needed to become a Chunin so that he would start showing his worth to the village. But would the whispers stop? He doubted that. Even if the younger generation acknowledged him, it didn't matter as long as the older ones hated him. Based on what he heard from the old man Hokage, the council is the ones who vote in the Hokage. Was there any point of having that goal if most of the people on that council disliked him? And then there comes the problem of his dark side. He wouldn't deny it and say the Kyuubi was wrong. He knew he had it. After all, he sometimes felt that hatred trying to manifest itself anytime he saw Sakura give Sasuke more attention and ignore him. Even though he had precious people to protect and he won't allow any evil him to harm them. There had to be something he could do to prevent the manifestation of evil Naruto. The Kyuubi, seeing Naruto expressions changing from one of pain to sadness then anger, smiled. His plan was going smoothly. All that was left was for the brat to accept his chakra. What do I have to do to protect my precious people? Naruto asked, breaking the thick cloud of silence that had covered the atmosphere. The only way to prevent the awakening of your evil self is to merge with him. That way you will be in control since you are the original, though I warn you. Sometimes you will feel him tugging at the back of your mind wanting freedom, the Kyuubi said. Naruto remained quiet as he seemed to think about it. Why should I trust you? You have been spewing shit about destroying the leaf. This might be one of your schemes to get free, Naruto said. I am a beast that haven't known peace for the past 100 years. I have been in 2 different containers, you being my third. Of course, you can't blame me for fighting for my freedom, but the truth of the matter is that I am not going anywhere unless you reap away that seal. The best I can do right now is try to use my chakra to cloud your mind with hate and anger when you go berserk, just like what happened on the bridge against that ice boy. Naruto seemed to be considering the beast words and nodded. Alright, how do I find and merge with this dark me? Naruto asked. Sometimes the most searched after things are always in front of us, not far from our reach, the Kyuubi said. Naruto was going to ask him what he meant until he noticed it. He was getting bad vitas and he looked at his reflection in the water. All seemed normal until his reflection eye color turned red. Out of surprise and curiosity, Naruto reached out to see if the reflection was tangible, but all he got was a dispersion of the image as the water rippled from his touch. As Naruto sighed in relief that the creepy image wasn't real, the image reformed again and stretched out its hands as it got a hold of Naruto's outstretched hand and dragged it, bringing the unexpected blonde to slam onto the waters hard. This ended up knocking the boy out as he lay motionless. The Kyuubi watched in amusement as black chakra with hints of red in them clashed with blue chakra as they flowed out of the still genin fighting for dominance. After a while, they seemed to achieve harmony and the flow of chakra died down. The next time Naruto woke up, he was lying on the ground, having fallen off the bed. Flashback end. The Kyuubi had told him not to mention what had happened to anyone, especially his sensei or the Hokage. They might fear he wasn't strong enough to handle all the hate bubbling inside of him and seal him up in a room far away from any form of life. The Kyuubi wasn't lying when he said the evil side would occasionally fight for dominance. He had tried talking to the being but received no response. His guess was that he was not the talkative type. He had also received some attributes of his dark side after the merge. One of them was his personality change. He was no longer the hyperactive blonde everyone knew. While he could still be cheerful, he also inherited the selfish ideology of his evil side, which thought it didn't matter how many lives are lost or believe in teamwork. As long as he survives and accomplishes his mission, then all is well. Another was his learning capabilities. He seemed to be able to learn techniques and skills faster as his concentration level had increased. His sensei had made him do a few meditation exercises, and unlike the former Naruto, he seemed to be able to relax and get into it. When you are done, you will want to know that two people with a high amount of bloodlust are approaching this place. They are probably enemy ninjas, the Kyuubi said within. Naruto nodded and got into hiding to set an ambush as he jumped onto the ceiling and stayed on it using chakra. He didn't wait long as the door to the office opened, showing two ninjas who were putting on Otogakure's handbands. By the look of their dressing, I can safely assume they're Chunins, Naruto thought as he prepared to drop on them, but found out he didn't need to, because as soon as they stepped into the office, they activated a paralysis seal which was applied at the door's entrance to prevent unwanted entering. Thump thump, that was the sound produced when the two bodies hit the ground. Kuso, Naruto cursed as he realized his mission suddenly became 4 times harder. Naruto created 2 clones that dropped onto the ground, leaving only him hanging on the ceiling. Look for the scroll, Naruto told the clones, who nodded in response. The clones went through everything, turning everything upside down including the Hokage desk to look for any secret entrance or safe. Poof! A clone dispelled as it triggered another trap again, causing it to be struck by a pulse of released lightning. Well, I didn't think it would be easy. After what happened the last time, I am sure Gigi wouldn't want a forbidden scroll falling into the hands of another genin, Naruto thought grimly. Boom! An explosion rocked the area really loud that it caused the Hokage portraits to shake. But it seemed like luck was on Naruto's side as the portrait of the 4th Hokage fell from its position, revealing a safe embedded in the wall. Really? I thought those pictures were screwed tight onto the walls. But Naruto refused to question his luck as he ordered his clone to move closer and inspect the safe lock. As soon as his clone tried touching the safe, numerous seals ran up his hand and covered his body, before the clone turned pale and collapsed, dispelling into a cloud of smoke. Arg! Naruto groaned as he received the memories of the clone's pain. That momentary distraction causing him to stop the flow of chakra to his feet, and he fell onto the ground. It seems like it's a seal meant to seal up a person's chakra permanently, Naruto thought as he remembered the sensation his clone had experienced. Naruto then ran through seals as he thought. Let's see if using force will open the damned safe, Naruto thought as he completed the seal sequence. Wind style. Wind bullet. Naruto said as a ball of wind was formed and sent flying at the safe. The ball seemed to hit the safe, then bounce back at Naruto at twice its original speed. If not for his reflexes training, Naruto was sure he would have been minced meat, staining the walls and floors as he observed the damage the ball caused when it crashed into the wall behind him after he had jumped to avoid the return assault. A seal that repels even air. I told you the Uzumakis were the greatest seal masters, the Kyuubi said as Naruto grinned. He was becoming more proud of his heritage. He remembered the first time the Kyuubi told him about it. Flashback. Naruto could be seen training far away from his teammates. Ever since the merging incidents, he had started creating a distance between him and his teammates. He didn't want any event like Sakura ignoring him to create any more hate in him. Right now he was running through katas which didn't belong to any fighting style yet. He was planning on creating a style for himself, but he didn't know how to accomplish that without the aid of a teacher, and knowing Kakashi, the man would probably just give him a few pointers and disappear, not bothering to spar with him. The Kyuubi, who had been watching Naruto movements through his mind eye, decided to speak up. Don't you think something is missing? The beast started. What do you mean? Naruto asked back. Your body acts quickly and your reflexes are good. You have good judgmental abilities, all as a result of many years of running for your life. Though you might think it, but your body isn't built for heavy assaulting. It's speed and agility, the fox answered. Really? What makes you say that? Naruto asked again. While the stances and movements are different, they all still feel like an Uzumaki's to me, the Kyuubi said. Uzumaki's? Naruto asked as he stopped his exercise, now fully interested in the conversation. Yes, Uzumaki's. I am not surprised you haven't heard about them. Clearly they were destroyed during the Second Shinobi War, but they were so strong they created a whole village for themselves. The world feared them as they were great sword users and masters of the seal arts, but they were allies with this pitiful village, the Kyuubi answered. But if they were destroyed, how come I bear the name Uzumaki? Naruto asked again. Boy, you ask a lot of questions. Your mother Kushina Uzumaki moved away to Konoha a week before the invasion of Uzushio, hence she was safe when the invasion occurred. Here in Konoha, she became my second container, carrying the burden away from my first Mito Senju, or better yet Uzumaki, the Kyuubi answered. Naruto clenched his fists as he heard this. So you are trying to say the containers before me were Uzumaki's and they all faced the same treatment I got, including my mother? The blonde asked as he growled slightly. Yes, and I wouldn't have known that Kushina was your mother. While I knew she was pregnant when I was still sealed, I thought her baby died during my attack. But I still sense her chakra within you even though it's faint. The beast said. You sensed her chakra in me, right? Does that mean that you can find out who my dad is? Naruto asked. While I do sense another chakra signature in you alongside your mother's, it doesn't seem like I recognize it, though I'll confess it feels familiar also. The Kyuubi said in dishonesty, as it would take a fool not to recognize the chakra of the one who put him in this mess, and with the crazy resemblance between the two male. No one could argue with the fact that Naruto was the fourth's blood, but he had his reasons for keeping quiet about that fact. Okay. As long as I know who my mom is I am happy, Naruto said as he resumed his exercise. So you were saying something about me getting a sword? Flashback end. Naruto smiled at the memory and focused back on the matter at hand. He had to get this godforsaken safe open and get its content. What about trying a blood unlock? The fox suggested. Blood unlock? Naruto asked in confusion. The Uzumakis were great sealers. I assume they wouldn't have created a safe that no one would open, so I guess only members of the Uzumaki clan could open it. If it's so, such process requires the use of blood to unlock for verification, the Kyuubi answered. I am getting bad vibes about that idea, Fox. You saw what happened to my clone. I wouldn't want Leaf Nins and the Hokage coming back here to meet my dead body lying in front of a super secret safe. Don't worry about your chakra. With my abilities I should be able to keep your chakra pathways open and continue to pump chakra through them, so if the seal attempts to shut them down, my chakra acts as an antidote and opens them back up. After all, they were made for humans' chakra and not Biju, the Kyuubi reasoned. Alright then, if you say, Naruto said as he bit down on his thumb, hard enough to draw blood. With steady steps and a hopeful heart, hoping he didn't die rather than the safe opening, he drew a line of the scarlet fluid across the safe door horizontally. And with that he heard a click which drew a sigh of relief from him. He then pulled the safe door open and in there lay a single scroll. It was smaller than he imagined. After all, he was imagining a scroll the size as the one he stole before, but if this scroll contained what he was told it contained, then he wouldn't complain. Alright kids, snatch that scroll and let's get out of here, the Kyuubi said. Naruto nodded and quickly grabbed the scroll and put it in his kunai pouch. He closed the safe and hung the portrait back into its former position, and with quick agility he launched himself out of the same window he used to come in onto the ground below. Somewhere else, Konoha Forest. Sasuke was on hot pursuit after the crazed Gaara, who seemed to take delight in knocking down every tree he found in front of him. Sasuke knew he was in a dangerous territory as Gaara's siblings were somewhere around. Sasuke's thoughts became reality as the two Sand siblings appeared in front of him. He didn't need anyone to tell him those guys were not planning on having a nice conversation with him, then send him off on his way with a few tips on defeating their brother. Thou shalt not pass, Kankuro said. He doesn't need your permission to, Shikamaru said as he and Shino dropped in front of Sasuke. Go ahead Sasuke, we will take care of them, Shino said. Nobody is going anywhere, Temari yelled as he whipped out her fan and her brother got his puppets ready. But both of them jumped out of the way in order to avoid the shadow that they spotted moving towards them. Taking advantage of the situation, Sasuke jumped out of there with a nod of thanks at Shino and Shikamaru, who looked disappointed at the fact his attack wasn't successful. "You both are going to regret that," Tamari growled as she swung her fan, releasing a gust of wind. Konoha was burning. It was under invasion from two villages, one of which was supposed to be in good terms with the village. While Konoha had skillful ninjas that were able to back up the fact that it was called the strongest hidden village, they were still overwhelmed by the large numbers of the enemy ninjas. Naruto was currently heading back to the Chunin arena. While he didn't really care what happened to the village, he had loved ones to protect. What would be the point of merging with his dark side if Konoha still ended up destroyed? He was running across the roofs to avoid the battles going on below, though he had encountered a few enemy ninjas on the way, but they were nothing but low and mid-ranked Chunins, something he could handle. While he could handle his own in a one-on-one battle against a high-ranked Chunin, he will still lose if he faced a Junin. As he took another look below, he saw a familiar group of people leading another group of kids who seemed to be the kids at the academy, considering the fact that Konohamaru and his gang were there. "Oi, Ino-chan?" Naruto called out as he jumped to meet them. The said girl turned around at the sound of her name, coming face to face with Naruto, who was high-fiving the Hokage's grandkid and his friends. "Where were you, Baka? Kakashi-sensei assigned us missions," Kiba said as he also spotted the blonde. "Was looking for Mutt Wash." "Mutt?" Naruto replied and cracked a smile as he watched Kiba scream at him, asking him if he wanted another fight while being held back by the girl whose hair was tied up in twin buns. He never did catch her name. Kiba was silenced with a punch to the head kutsuti of an angry Ino. "10-10 was it?" Naruto asked. At least that's what he thought he heard from the proctor during the preliminaries and from her teammates. The girl nodded, confirming his assumption was true. "What were the missions Kakashi-sensei asked us to do?" he asked. If Kakashi already assigned everyone missions, there was no point going back to the Chunin arena. He would probably just join the battle on his own or assist any allies. "He put us in groups of 3s, and as you can see, we are in charge of transporting the academy students." As she said that, Ino and Kiba grumbled in annoyance, showing they would rather do anything else but what they were doing now. "What about Sasuke?" Naruto asked. Sasuke was too proud to be doing missions like guard and protect civilians in a situation like this, meaning wherever Sasuke was, a battle was going down, and probably a big one. He went after Gaara and his siblings, so Shikamaru and Shino were sent after him as backup, but considering how crazy and dangerous that Gaara boy looked when he was transforming into that thing, he might need more backup, Ino answered. While she was a Sasuke fangirl, she wasn't going to hype the Uchiha and say stuff like Sasuke-kun was strong enough not to require backup. While she trusted the skills and brains of Shikamaru, the boy were lazy and could quit in the middle of the mission, saying he wants to go cloud watching. Naruto nodded and asked for where they headed to. With Ino telling him that they headed for Konoha's forest, Naruto jumped away and Ino and her group continued on their way. Somewhere, Konoha forest. Sasuke, who had been running for a while, finally caught up to Gaara, who was standing on a large tree branch frowning at the approaching Uchiha. Sasuke landed on another large branch away from Gaara as he took a look at the still Gaara, who started grinning maniacally like a predator that found an unsuspecting prey. "I don't know what the Sand are planning, but I will put an end to it," Sasuke said. As he steeled his resolve and prepared to jump at Gaara, he stopped as the Sand Genin suddenly grabbed his head, groaning in pain. He then looked up at Sasuke, revealing the cracks that were becoming more pronounced. Sasuke unwillingly took a step back from the killer intent he was feeling. While he had undergone withstanding killer intent training with Kakashi, this was still on another level. It felt like the one the ninja that bit him in the Forest of Death gave off, except this one spelled evil. "Uchiha Sasuke," Gaara said as he slowly rose to his feet. "You who is strong, you who has friends, you who has been shown love by all since day one. I exist in this world as one who erases you from it," Gaara said, but fell back to his knees as he gripped his head again in pain. Sasuke, seeing his opponent's distress, decided to use the opportunity and finish the battle before anything else happened. Stealing his resolve again, he took a chakra-reinforced leap at the kneeling Gaara. As soon as he got close to Gaara, his Sharingan spotted Gaara's tail heading at him at high speeds, but due to the fact Sasuke was in the air, he had no way to dodge the tail as the sand appendage hit him hard across the chest, sending him back to his former position. Sasuke sat on the branch and coughed out a bit of blood as he glared at the Jinchuriki. More sand was covering Gaara, making him bigger and his sand appendages longer. Let me. Sasuke frowned. The words the sand genin said, though they sounded more like a whisper. Let me. Gaara said again, this time his words louder. Let me feel it. Gaara cried out as he got back to his feet and faced Sasuke, who rose to his feet, also clutching his left rib area. Mother yells for your blood, Uchiha. Gaara cried crazily and with that dashed at neck-breaking speeds at the Uchiha. Sasuke, whose eyes managed to follow the approaching genin but knowing he wasn't fast enough for a counter-attack, jumped away to another branch as less than a second later, Gaara's sandarm came smashing down on his former position, turning the large branch into tiny splinters. Sasuke quickly ran through seals and inhaled, ignoring the pain in his ribs with willpower. Fire style. Fireball jutsu. He cried as he launched his attack into one giant ball, seeing as the pain in his chest wouldn't allow him to turn it into a fire stream. The ball collided with the sand, causing a part of the sand to explode into dust that blocked Gaara's view of Sasuke. Using the dust as a cover, Sasuke jumped away from his position to a faraway one in order to formulate a plan. He could hear Gaara stumping around, yelling his name and crashing down trees. Shit, this guy is crazy. I will need backup, Kuso, Sasuke said to himself, but swore as he remembered everyone was busy and he was on his own. I have got to do this. My pride as an Uchiha is on the line, and I can't die before I see him again, Sasuke said as he put his right hand into his kunai pouch and closed his eyes in concentration. Are you afraid of me, Sasuke Uchiha? Of my existence? Gaara said as he stopped his rampage and growled. Come out, Sasuke Uchiha. You are my prey. Gaara finished as his demonic right eye glowed slightly as he looked around. Sasuke opened his eyes and exhaled. Channeling chakra to his feet, he took a leap out of the tree he was hiding in. Over there, Gaara yelled to himself as he sent his sandarm after Sasuke. Sasuke, who thought he had created some space between he and Gaara, was shocked when the arm grew longer and crossed the distance between them within 2 seconds. The arm moved to hit him in the chest again, but Sasuke was prepared this time and countered with a substitution technique, appearing overhead Gaara and launched several kunais at him. Gaara raised his sandarm just in time to block the projectiles. The kunais got stuck in Gaara's arm and the sand started absorbing them in. Damn, Sasuke cursed as he saw this as he jumped away from Gaara. Let me return them to you. Gaara yelled as he swung his arm, shooting the kunais out of his arm at Sasuke 5 times the speed Sasuke threw them. Whipping out 2 kunais, Sasuke deflected the projectiles using his Sharingan, though his defending kunais cracked from the force received from the attacking kunais. Throwing the kunais away, Sasuke glared at the grinning Gaara as he tightened his armbands. Somewhere else, Hinata Group. Hyuga Hinata was not having a good time. While her team had received an easy mission of escorting the civilians to the safety bunker hidden in the Hokage monument, it turned out that some of these guys were not willing to take orders from genins or wet behind the ears kids, a guy who would give the Akamichi a run for their money when it came to body size said. Due to that, they had spent most of the time they would have used to get safely to the bunker arguing with the adults, with Choji trying to calm an angered Sakura who nearly pulverized a man that called her a chopping board. Hey, get that girl away from me, the man yelled as Sakura screamed for his blood while Choji held her back. Please, you have to trust us. While we might be genins, but we have gone through drills on the safety routes in the village in case of a war outbreak. Even if you manage to get to the bunker by yourself, you won't be able to open the door since it requires chakra, Hinata said as she tried to reason with them. You know, Hinata, no one would notice if we left these guys to die. We'll just recess the children since the adults are all knowing, Sakura said as she rolled her eyes, ignoring the shouts of, really? And, I told you she was a beast, coming from the crowd. He, what do we have here? A voice said out loud. Hinata and her team jumped into defensive positions around the civilians as they located where the voice came from. Just as Hinata thought, this was not her day. A 6-man sand Chunin squad was staring down at them from the surrounding roofs. Kuso, Choji swore as he saw this. I know, Choji, we are in serious trouble, Sakura said as she whipped out a kunai. Why don't you all give up and nobody dies? You will only receive the punishment of serving us, The man who seemed like the leader of the squad said if the band on his left arm that had the kanji for bosses was any indication. "We ain't going nowhere," someone from the group of Leaf civilians yelled out. "Yeah, these kids are one of the best of their generation, don't underestimate Leaf ninjas. Go get them." The man who called Sakura a chopping board yelled at them. "What? A minute ago you were calling us useless." Sakura yelled back at the guy angrily as she pointed her kunai at him. Yeah, do your job and stop whining," the man yelled back. "How about I make you whine?" Sakura asked as she attempted to march at the man but stopped when the leader of the enemy squad started clapping. "Just as I heard, the Leaf is full of clowns and you didn't fail to impress," the man said as he whipped out a kunai and walked towards them. "I was going to be merciful and spare your lives, but seeing as you wasted my time you will die." With that the enemy team dashed for the Leaf Genins. Hinata and her crew knew they were in trouble. They were no match for a Chunin in a one-on-one battle, not to talk of a whole squad of them. Expansion technique. Human bullet tank, Choji yelled as he inflated into a large size. "Well men, as you see we have a underdeveloped Pinky, a Hyuga who clearly lacks self-confidence, which is strange cause most people I have met from that clan were assholes and a really fat kid. As you can see our work is cut out for us," the leader said as he and his men started grinning. "I am not fat, I am just big-boned," Choji yelled as he rolled into a ball and dashed for the enemy team. "That's right, we might be at a disadvantage but we won't give up without a fight," Hinata said as she and Sakura ran behind Choji to engage the men. Somewhere else, with Naruto. Naruto had still not gotten close to his destination at all. He had encountered a group of sound nins and while he took care of them, it took longer than he had wanted. Now he just hoped Gaara wouldn't kill Sasuke before he got there. As he got to the edge of the roof he was on and prepared to jump, he saw a group of his classmates, namely Hinata, Choji and Sakura. But they weren't in a good shape at all. They looked like they were taking a good beating. Their opponents looked like sand nins and wore Chunin jackets. Currently Sakura was out cold, Hinata was on her knees and Choji was barely standing. But they didn't go out easily as two enemy nins were lying on the ground out cold. "Well, you kids did better than we thought," one of the sand nins said. "But too bad, we are going to have to still kill you," another finished. Hinata smiled. Looks like her father was right, she was weak and couldn't protect anything. Even the civilians they were to protect ran away when they started taking a beating. Looks like this is the price to pay, and she didn't even get to tell him how she felt, and with that a tear ran down her face. Naruto smiled as he watched Choji stand his ground as he alone stood against 4 Chunins. Sure, he was taking a really good beating, but he wanted to protect his comrades who couldn't protect themselves, and the Chunins were toying with him, so they didn't use any life-threatening attack on him yet. Naruto remembered the last time he took a beating like that. Flashback. Clank clank clank. This were the sounds heard as Naruto could be seen practicing his kicking on a tree in one of the training grounds. The Kyuubi had advised him, which was something he never thought the fox could do, but the fox said he didn't want a weak container who could put their lives in danger to practice and refine the technique that was taught at the academy. If he could get that basic one down, he could probably create a fighting style for himself. Now Naruto had created a sizable hole in the tree from numerous kicks he had thrown at it. He was starting to feel tired and his legs felt sore, but he knew he couldn't give up now. Considering his status, he could be the target of anyone, so he needed to be strong. Naruto never sensed the incoming danger until it was too late. A kunai came out of nowhere and created a cut on his left cheek. Placing his hand on the cut, Naruto jumped away from the direction the kunai came from and frowned. In front of him were 3 leaf ninjas, all grinning widely. They all had a kunai in their hands and were walking towards him. Well, what do we have here? The demon is trying to train. What do you say, men? Should we assist him? The one of the said. Well, we shall, after all we are all allies, the second said. And with that they all threw their kunais at once at the Jinchuriki. Naruto whipped out a kunai and deflected them all and threw his kunai at the leaf nin in the middle. The ninja dodged it and they all dashed for Naruto. Naruto created 5 clones and they all ran to meet the ninjas midway, and they all engaged in a battle of taijutsu, 2 Narutos on 1 enemy ninja. It seemed like a fair fight until one of the enemies used a wind technique that cleared out half of the Narutos. Now it remained just 3 Narutos including the original, and both clones got dispelled in no time, leaving just the original, who tried to hold his stand but was soon overpowered. Inside Naruto's mind, the Kyuubi awoke from his slumber to see his host getting beat up. As he considered giving the brat his chakra to support him, he saw a dark figure staring at him with red eyes. What looked like black fog gathered at his feet before enveloping him, his red eyes glowing in the midst of all that darkness. "He has awoken," the fox thought with a sadistic grin as the movement of the black fog became more rampant before becoming a large twister, the red eyes still glowing as the dark fog pooled at the foot of his prison bar. "I am going to borrow a bit of your chakra," a voice called out from within the fog before a hand reached out from within and ripped off one of the edges of the seal. This caused red chakra to flow out of Kyuubi's cell into the black fog. "Things are going to get interesting," the fox said to himself. Outside Naruto's mind, "Come on brat, is this all you got from your training? The last one of them," Hyuga said as he kicked a downed Naruto in the ribs. He then lifted up the beaten up and placed him in a choke hold. "Why don't I put an end to your mockery of being a ninja before you go out there and embrace our village on a mission?" And with that he thrust his arm forward as he tried to do what looked like a Jukin strike to Naruto's heart, but his actions were put to a halt when the near-lifeless boy left arm reached out and grabbed the arm midway. The man struggled to get his arm free, but Naruto's grip was tight, too tight for someone who could barely stand 10 seconds ago. He and his partners looked at Naruto's face, and what they saw scared them to death. Naruto's skin color had become darker, along with his hair going from golden yellow to pitch black like an Uchiha's with hints of red in them. His pupils were now blood red instead of their lovely cerulean with a slit in them, just like a beast. "Kyuubi?" The man holding Naruto whimpered as he let go of Naruto, but groaned as the pressure on his binded arm increased before he started screaming as the sounds of cracking could be heard across the clearing. "Fear," Naruto said. Immediately he said it, the 3 men fell to their knees as Naruto's killer intent slammed down on them hard. They were all sweating and in a frightened daze, but the one who was in Naruto's grip could still move as a result of the pain he was feeling from his crushed wrist. "He helped me," the man yelled at his companions who didn't seem to hear him. "Help me," he yelled again, this time it working as it snapped them out of their daze. They both whipped out a kunai and created a cut on their palm to bring them back to reality. "Looks like everyone was right. He was the Kyuubi, but today is our lucky day. We will kill you and be hailed as heroes. We will be hailed greater than the Yondaime for stopping the second coming of the Kyuubi." Throughout all this, Naruto kept looking at them, increasing the pressure on the man's hand who was trying to rip out his broken hand from the Jinchuriki's grip. The other 2 men dashed to rescue their friend and kill a demon, but Naruto lifted up his first victim and, using inhuman strength, flung him at the approaching foes. As the one of the ninjas paused in his run to catch his partner, he felt pain in his chest. Looking down, he saw a hand that pierced through his friend's chest and into his. Immediately he saw this, the hand retracted out of their bodies, his friend dropping before him dead to show Naruto standing before him with a bloodied right arm. For a bunch of experienced ninjas, you fell for a simple distraction trick. If you didn't decide to play buddy and catch your friend, you wouldn't have had your sights on me away and would have probably seen me coming. But you are going to have to die. Can't allow that kind of embarrassment to happen on a mission, you know. And with that the second man dropped dead. Naruto turned his sights on the third man, who was now on his knees shaking from fear after seeing what his friends went through. Stay away from me, demon," the man yelled as he ran through seals. "Fire style. Dragon fire technique," he said as he exhaled a stream of flames that traveled in the form of a dragon towards Naruto and enveloped him with its flames. "Ha ha ha ha. Burn in hell, demon," the man laughed as he watched the flames burn. "You know, one thing humans are good at is their ability to manipulate the very being called nature, making use of its abilities to achieve great powers and conquer foes. These abilities even making gods cower in fear, but it would seem you are an exception. Your flames weren't hot at all. I doubt my counterpart could use it to warm up his ramen," Naruto's voice called out from behind the man. The man started shaking visibly as the smell of urine reached Naruto's nose. Please, don't kill me. I promise not to tell anyone," the man said as he turned slowly to face Naruto. "Humans really are fragile creatures. Of course you won't tell anyone because you are not going anywhere. Say hi to the Yondaime in hell for me." And with that, Naruto used the kunai to stab the man in the throat. The man collapsed as he gasped for breath, squeezing his throat to stop the blood outflow, but nothing could be done as he was clearly going pale. And one more thing, don't mistake me with the furball, we are different organisms. My name isn't the QB, it's Menma, bitch. And with he took a step back as he watched the man stop shaking, finally dead. The new character called Menma looked at the bloodied kunai in his hands and rubbed the blade against a nearby tree leaves to wipe off the blood. When he was done, he spun around and threw the blade at the tree behind him. I know you are there, come out, Menma said. Everywhere was quiet for a second before a cloaked figure dropped out from the tree holding the thrown kunai. I am surprised you were able to sense me, considering the fact you are not a pure-blood Uzumaki. But at the same time, I wouldn't call you Naruto Uzumaki, right? The unknown character said. I don't know you are, but the fact you saw me kill that guy means you are going to have to die too, Menma said as he got into a fighting stance and rushed for the man. The man sighed. You know, not all sticky situations are solved through violence, he said as Menma jumped for a drop kick that looked similar to the dynamic entry. The man blocked the kick with his right arm. Menma then spun and using the man's hand as a platform jumped and attempted using his left leg for a overhead kick which the man caught. Whipping out a kunai, Menma tried to stab him in his neck, but the man took a page from Menma's book and flung away him before the kunai could come close. Menma spun in the air and threw the kunai at the man before he landed perfectly. But he didn't spend up to 2 seconds on his feet before he was kicked from behind. As he flew and crashed into the tree where the man jumped out from, he saw it was his new foe that kicked him. He's fast, that's good, I was already getting bored from being in there with no action, Menma said to himself as he got back to his feet. Still want more? The man asked, his words carrying an air of arrogance. Hee, if I knew better, I would say you were an Uchiha or Hyuga. But you ain't Sasuke, neither do you fight like a Hyuga, Menma said as he formed a clone and both ran for the foe. The man said nothing as he stood waiting for his opponents to reach him. The original Menma grabbed his clone on the way and threw him at the unknown foe. The man brought up his left leg and kicked the clone hard across the chest, making it dispel into smoke, blocking his vision of the original Menma. The man shifted to the left as Menma appeared behind him in a flash and attempted to stab him from the right. Using the same leg he used to dispel the clone, he gave Menma a jaw-breaking kick. Menma fell to the ground, then dispelled, revealing he was also a clone. As the smoke left by the clone cleared, it revealed the clone had dropped a paper bomb which was already ignited. Boom! The tag exploded. Hee, Menma laughed as he came out from his hiding place behind the tree he was kicked into earlier as the man was nowhere to be found. You really seem to enjoy violence, Menma-kun, a voice called out. Menma frowned and turned around, revealing his foe was still alive and didn't have as much as a burn on even his clothes. Menma scowled and stretched out his right hand, gripping his wrist with his left hand. You are starting to piss me off. I didn't want to use this technique, but I have things to do. And with that, a wisps of black chakra started flowing through the lad's hand before they gathered in front of his palm and started forming a small ball. The man put his hand to his chin and said, if that technique is what I think it is, it would cause problems for both of us. And with that he disappeared in a flash, Menma eyes widening as he felt the man's presence behind him. Too slow to do anything, the last thing he felt was pain at the back of his head. A few hours later, Naruto woke up underneath to see he was still at the training ground. As he sat up, he groaned as his head was hurting for some reason. Then he remembered what happened, the attack on him and how the Hyuga had said he was going to end his ninja career. But that was all he could remember. He didn't know what happened next. He checked his body and saw his wounds were all healed up and then put his hands in the ram sign just like they were taught at the academy when they were to unlock their chakra pathways. He sensed chakra still flowing in his pathway, so he was safe. But he still didn't know what was going on. Are you going to spend all night thinking? Seems like the opposite of him, a voice said. Naruto looked surprised at the presence of another person sitting on a branch above him. He got up quickly to have a good look, but he couldn't see the man's appearance due to the fact that it was already dark and he covered himself up. Who are you? Naruto asked. Wow, you seem like the one with the brains between the both of you, the man said as he dropped from the tree. Excuse me, two of us? Naruto asked, C infusion clearly evident on his face. Yes, the other you called Menma. Who wanted to use a tailed beast attack recklessly and attract attention, which would have been a problem for us? Actually just you, because I know the Shushin technique, but it would have jeopardized my mission. The man replied. Menma? Who is Menma? Naruto asked, still confused. The Dark You, your other personality, the man replied. That was when it dawned on Naruto. His dark side must have surfaced in order to save his ass, and the amount of hatred he was generating when he was fighting those men must have been enough to allow him take control of his body. You said he called himself Menma? Naruto asked again. The man nodded in affirmation. Naruto sighed as he rubbed his head and grinned at the unknown man. So what happened to the men I was fighting? He asked. You killed them, but don't worry about the bodies. I got rid of them, the man replied. Naruto felt disgust when he heard that. He killed someone, but strangely a part of him felt peace when he heard that. I assume you were the one who stopped me. Naruto started. The man said nothing, imploring Naruto to continue. You stopped a tailed beast attack, meaning you are really strong. I want you to train me, Naruto finished. What? The man replied in surprise. Flashback end. His sensei had refused initially, but with persistence on his side, he later got the man to agree. Since that incident, he hadn't felt the presence of his dark side at the back of his mind like before. Naruto came back to the present as he saw Hinata struggling to get up and get into her Jukin stance as the men walked towards her, as Choji was left on the ground having fallen in battle, not literally though. I think we are going to have a little fun with you before we kill you, he heard one of the men say before they all laughed at the thought. Okay, I think that is my cue to jump in, Naruto said to himself before he kicked off the roof, running through seals. Wind style. Wind bullet technique. Naruto said as he launched a wind ball at the man in front, the wind attack going through him and the man behind him, killing them and leaving two confused Chunins who never expected Naruto to dash for them. Immediately he landed, pasting paper bombs on their jackets before shoving them using a chakra enforced push away from him, blowing them up. Nato turned to look at Hinata, who was wide-eyed at the display. Hinata-chan. You okay? He asked with worry evident on his face as he walked over to her. The girl went red-faced as she realized what was going on. After making sure she and the others were okay, Naruto continued his trip to back up Sasuke. Hinata frowned as Naruto left. He probably saw her as weak, she thought. Somewhere else, Sasuke's position. Sasuke and Gaara had clashed once more, with Sasuke once again taking refuge in the trees. He had used up most of his chakra reserves and he probably had enough for 2 more attacks. I just have to use it again, it was the only thing that could pierce his defense the last time, Sasuke said to himself as he ran through seals and charged up a familiar lightning-covered fist, the curse seals running up his face. That more like it, Uchiha. Gaara yelled as he dashed for Sasuke. Sasuke frowned and ran for Gaara. Die, Uchiha. Gaara yelled as he stretched out his sandarm to strike. Chidori, Sasuke said as he threw out his lightning-covered fist at the arm. Just like before, Sasuke sliced through Gaara's sand like a hot knife through butter. But Gaara jumped back in time before Sasuke got to his shoulder like before. That is it, prove my existence, Sasuke Uchiha, Gaara said as more sand came up to replace the ones lost from Sasuke's attack. Sasuke, seeing his attack nearly worked, smiled as he changed his attack target. Next I go for his heart, Sasuke thought as he ran through seals again and started charging up the Chidori, but he couldn't get more than a sparkle. Kuso, Sasuke said as he gave it his all, pumping all he could into the attack. The sparkle continued to get bigger, then it erupted into a full-blown Chidori. Seeing this, Sasuke channeled his last bit of chakra to his feet and kicked off the branch, causing it to shatter into splinters. Chidori, Sasuke yelled as he approached Gaara at neck break speeds, but before he could hit his chest, a layer of sand formed a wall before Gaara. Damn, he used the sand he lost from his arm to create a wall, but doesn't matter, Sasuke said as he pushed through the sand to see Gaara with sick grin. Wait, don't tell me, Sasuke said to himself before Gaara's tail struck him in the chest, cancelling out his Chidori and sending him to the branches below. Sasuke landed hard on his back and he groaned from the pain. He tried getting up, but as soon as he tried, that pain shot through his body, causing him to collapse. Sasuke looked up as he saw Gaara jump towards him. Looks like this is the end, I could never catch up to him, Sasuke thought as he saw the approaching Gaara, his Sharingan already deactivated. Just as Gaara got close to his position, A yellow blur came out of nowhere and collided with the sand demon, sending him crashing into the trees. Sasuke frowned as he saw his savior, and it was the last person he needed. Naruto grinned down at Sasuke as he had made it in time before Sasuke became blood pudding. "Hi Teme," Naruto said. "Dobi," Sasuke replied. "Says the guy who can't get up," Naruto said as he smiled mischievously. "Don't worry, I am here to save your royal ass." Sasuke replied. He would have said more, but they were interrupted by the wave of killer intent that washed over them. Looking to the side where Gaara crashed, they saw the redhead growling at them. "Uzumaki," he yelled. Naruto and Sasuke frowned as a large amount of killer intent hit them. Sasuke was still lying down and couldn't get up due to the fact that Gaara's killer intent was stronger than before, and also due to his injuries. Naruto on the other hand was still on his feet. He had felt greater killer intent from being in the presence of the fox. He could definitely withstand the force of this one. "Sasuke, think you can still battle?" Naruto asked as he whipped out a kunai and flipped it into reverse grip, spreading his feet apart and bending his knees a bit, showing he was ready to jump at any moment. "Give me a few minutes to catch my breath," Sasuke replied as he made eye contact with the blonde. "Think you can manage holding him back that long?" he finished. "You underestimate me, Sasuke-kun," Naruto said as he smiled at the raven-haired. "Uzumaki, I will have your blood," Gaara yelled as he sprung from his position, sand arm forward to grab Naruto. "Well, wish me luck," Naruto said as he jumped forward to meet Gaara. He couldn't make the mistake of jumping away from his position to dodge Gaara's attack. That would mean him leaving defenseless Sasuke for the crazy sand nin to devour, and he didn't want Sakura, Ino or the villagers on his neck in case they found out he was Sasuke's partner for this battle. After all, Shino and Shikamaru saw him when he sped past them to catch up with Sasuke. "Kage Bunshin no Jutsu," Naruto said as he created 4 other replicas of himself. Channeling chakra to their legs and fists, they all dashed for the still approaching Gaara. A clone was the first to meet up with Gaara, and with quick reflexes, he dodged the sand arm that attempted to plow through him. Using a nearby tree branch as a springboard, he bounced back at breakneck speeds towards the sand nin and threw a kick to Gaara's right side. Strangely, the kick connected, sending Gaara flying to the left where the other Narutos were. The other 3 clones rushed for Gaara and delivered a series of kicks and punches as Gaara's distance from the earth increased as they delivered one final punch, sending him flying up straight into the open arms of the first clone. "Naruto Barrage," the clone yelled as he kicked Gaara with a chakra-reinforced kick towards Mother Earth. Gaara landed hard on the ground as he had crashed through the trees. "Rawr!" Gaara yelled as he looked up and spotted the Narutos, who sent him flying upwards, approaching as they jumped down from the trees. Gaara threw out his sand arm as he attempted to catch them, the sand arm elongating to catch one of the clones who didn't see the elongated arm attack in time. The other 2 dashed around Gaara, who kept sending sand flying around, and other to capture the other 2 pests who kept avoiding them. The clones finally stopped running and jumped back into the trees and avoid getting hit by Gaara. As Gaara got to his feet and attempted to move, he saw he couldn't move more than 2 feet as he felt pressure on him. Checking himself, he saw tiny lines that on him, and checking their sources, he saw they came from the 2 clones' positions as the ninja ropes stretched from the trees onto his bodies, making him realize the true intention of the clones running about. "Uzumaki!" Gaara yelled again as he spotted the Naruto that kicked him down, rushing for him, using the branches as springboards as he dashed at breakneck speeds towards the Jinchuriki. The clone whipped out a kuani and threw it, Gaara's hand rising up to block it, making the kunais get stuck on it. The clone smirked as Gaara's arm became long again and moved for the clone. The descending clone spun in the air and ran on the elongated arm, removing his stuck kunais and then jumping as Gaara's sandtail moved to hit him. The clone appeared behind Gaara and channeling more chakra to his legs, he kicked Gaara's legs, bringing him down to his knees, and stabbed the kunais into the sand nin's feet. The other 2 clones who were in the trees tightened their hold on the ninja wires as the one behind Gaara got dispelled as a result of Gaara's tail hitting him from the side. "Groan," Gaara said as he moved to remove the blade from his left foot, but his eyes widened as he spotted a paper bomb that was already ignited. Before Gaara could say, "Uzu," the area around him lit up, revealing multiple paper bombs which had been hidden beneath the grass. Gaara heard chuckling and looked to see another Naruto who he suspected was the original standing 20 feet in front of him. "Boom," Naruto whispered. Immediately the paper tags around Gaara, including the ones stuck on his feet, exploded, tearing the earth away. Sasuke, who was finally now on his feet, barely standing, was astonished by what he was seeing. The so-called Dobi was doing a better job at handling the maniac than he could. He knew from his previous battles with the Sand Genin that wasn't enough to bring down the crazed boy, and he knew Naruto knew that too. Naruto jumped back to meet Sasuke as he grinned while mentally going through Plan B in his head. While the old Naruto would just keep on hitting Gaara with everything he had until either one of them dropped, the new him now made more than one plan for an event. His sensei had advised him to have up to 3 different plans for a battle because no battle goes any one way except they physically overwhelm their opponent in all aspects. Here, Naruto stretched out his hand towards Sasuke, revealing a small pill in his palm. Sasuke, recognizing it, grabbed the pill and threw it into his mouth and swallowed. Within a few seconds, he felt part of his strength and chakra returning. "I am going to need you for this battle," Naruto said as he felt Gaara's killer intent again, and he and Sasuke looked down to see the mutilated Gaara, who was still on his knees, part of his feet missing along with a large part of his sand arm. What looked like remains of an incomplete sand shield was seen falling apart. "Sand senbons," Gaara whispered as the sand shield fell apart and transformed into numerous senbons. "Scatter pests," Gaara whispered again as the projectiles rushed for Naruto and Sasuke at great speeds. "Kuso Sasuke jump," Naruto yelled as he and Sasuke jumped away from each other, avoiding the senbons. Sasuke activated his Sharingan and whipped out what looked like pellets and slammed them onto the ground, releasing a smokescreen that covered the area. "Uchiha! Why do you refuse your death?" Gaara yelled out before he felt a presence behind him. Swinging his sand arm around, he hit Naruto before Naruto exploded in a cloud of smoke, revealing he was a clone. Sensing another presence again, he spotted Sasuke running towards him. Using part of the sand left from his shield as a trap, he grabbed a hold of Sasuke's feet. "Sand burial," Gaara said as the sand rose to crush Sasuke. But Sasuke was still smiling as he was burst to reveal a Fuma Sharingan that was heading towards Gaara. Learning from his past mistake, Gaara jumped over the projectile, avoiding it before he heard a poof he was already familiar with. Turning his head to look behind him, he saw another Naruto who grinned at him and chucked a kunai at the airborne Gaara, who rose up his right arm to block the projectile which got stuck on his arm. The kunai then exploded into smoke to reveal a smirking Sasuke whose hands were in the tiger seal. "Fire style. Fireball technique," Sasuke said as he released his attack, Gaara receiving it face on before he could react. Sasuke then jumped away before Gaara could grab as the redhead fell towards the earth where Naruto was seen waiting for him. "This is," Naruto yelled as he steeled his right leg for a kick. "Your end," Gaara yelled back as he created a fist, sand rising up to grab Naruto and squeeze him before the Naruto disappeared into a cloud of smoke. "Naruto KO," another Naruto yelled out as he came out of nowhere above Gaara, who could not do anything as he was still airborne and descending. The Naruto hit Gaara hard with a jaw-breaking kick, sending him crashing once again to Mother Earth. Naruto landed beside Sasuke as they both smiled at their accomplishments. "I am too weak. Did I become the prey? Is my existence no longer worthy?" Gaara thought as he laid on the ground as he had a flashback about the death of someone called Yashimaru. "Let me out. Use it," a voice called out to him, making Gaara gained his crazed grin. "Uzumaki," Gaara called out as he got to his feet, sand rising up to cover him from his feet up. "Mother needs your blood." Somewhere else, a cloaked figure was standing on one of the statues in the Chunin exam arena as he watched the leaf burn. He knew it wasn't permanently, as the leaf wasn't called the strongest in the elemental continent for nothing. That was why Orochimaru took great precaution by using the combined power of 2 villages to attack the leaf. But even though he should have chosen a stronger village to ally with, the Sand were easier to manipulate but were one of the weakest shinobi villages out of the Great Five. He watched as Konoha's finest made quick work of the enemy ninjas they were fighting, especially the man called Kakashi Hitaki. He was the legal sensei of his student and the last surviving student of the 4th Hokage. He had wanted to always clash with him in a fight, and this looked like a good opportunity. But he also took into consideration the other leaf nins that were close by. While he would be able to take on Kakashi and the red-eyed woman, Guy was a probability. He knew the man could access the gates and he didn't know what gate was his limit. He would be able to hold his own up to the 5th gate in a handicap, but once Guy reaches the 6th, he had no hope against he and Kakashi. Flick. The man put out his right hand and caught the kunai thrown at him by Kakashi, who had disposed of his opponents and finally took notice of the figure watching them. I was beginning to assume I would be ignored till the end. The man spoke out to Kakashi. Who are you, friend or foe? Guy, who was done with his battles, asked as he stood beside Kakashi. It all depends on which you decide to treat me as, the figure answered as he spun the kunai on his index finger and threw it back to Kakashi, who caught it. Any ninja without the Konoha headband is considered an enemy, Kakashi said as he pocketed his kunai. Reveal your identity, Guy called out. I'm sorry, that won't be possible, the figure replied. Then you are the enemy, a voice called out behind the figure as another Kakashi was seen behind him with a kunai pointed at his lower back. Surrender, Kakashi whispered to him. Copycat Kakashi and the green beast of Konoha. I would rather have our battle another time, another voice said as the two leaf nins turned their heads to where the genin were sitting before to see the foe standing. Clone? Kakashi asked himself. No genjutsu. The figure answered for him as the replica of him in front of Kakashi faded away. And I thought you will be able to spot genjutsu easily because of your eye, the figure said. You must have clashed with the Sharingan before to have a genjutsu capable of fooling it. Unless, Kakashi replied back. The figure said nothing as he shushined away, leaving a frowning Kakashi and a curious Guy. Back to Naruto's battle. Sasuke was on his last legs. He knew that after this, he was going to need a lot of medical attention as the adrenaline he had been running on was already gone. Right now the only thing that kept him standing was his will to survive as he looked at his opponent, who had suddenly grown bigger, easily the size of the Hokage Tower. Opposite the oversized sand demon was his teammate, who was riding a giant toad which he had summoned. Naruto also seemed to be tired, if the heavy breathing he was giving was anything to indicate by. Sasuke frowned as he remembered how they seemed to enter this mess. Flashback. Uzumaki, Gaara called out as he got to his feet, sand rising up to cover him from his feet up. Mother needs your blood. Sasuke, get ready again. Naruto called out as he whipped out a kunai, with Sasuke doing the same. Sasuke looked at Naruto and shook his head. He had never in a million years thought he would take orders from someone like Naruto, but ever since they came back from their mission to the Land of Waves, Naruto seemed calm now. He didn't bug Sakura for dates, neither did he trouble Sasuke or Kakashi for spars and training. This Naruto seemed like he had the same kind of ambition as he did in mind. I would never lose to someone like you, Gaara yelled as sand rose up quickly and covered his body, making him grow bigger. What is that? Sasuke thought as a huge shadow appeared through the dust that covered the area. That's his demon, huh? Naruto thought as the dust cloud cleared to reveal a huge creature that resembled a raccoon made out of sand. Sasuke cursed and tried to walk towards Naruto, but fell onto his knees as his energy left him. Frowning, he looked at Naruto, who was also frowning. Don't worry, Teme, I got this, Naruto said as he bit his right thumb, drawing out blood and ran through seals. Summoning technique, Naruto said as he slammed his right palm on the ground, a large smoke cloud enveloping him before it cleared to reveal a huge toad with a smoke pipe in its mouth and a huge ninjutsu at its side. When did Naruto? Sasuke asked as his eyes widened in amazement. Flashback end. Sasuke frowned as he looked the giant toad. The so-called Dobi had surpassed all of them in their set, including him. He didn't like this. He was now left in the dust and he felt he was nowhere closer to defeating that man. Looking at his left arm, Sasuke clenched his fist and swore to get stronger. You, the one I want is you, to kill? The raccoon screamed at the Naruto who was on top the giant toad. Boss, let's do this, Naruto said to the giant toad, who nodded at him. The toad unsheathed its blade and took a large leap. It managed to dodge the raccoon's limb attack by changing its direction in the air, and seeing an opening used its ninjutsu to cut off the attacking arm. You have to die, the raccoon yelled as it inhaled deeply, causing its stomach to puff out. Wind style. Wind bullet. The raccoon said as it hit its enlarged stomach, forcing the air out in the form of a devastating ball of wind that traveled for the blonde and his summon. Water style. Water bullet. The toad retaliated by showing a ball of water the same size as the ball of wind. The two attacks collided and water rained all over the battle area. The toad jumped again for another attack, but this time Gaara was ready as he fired of 3 consecutive wind bullets. The toad managed to block 2 but got hit by the third one, causing it to crash and create a dust cloud. "It's finally over," Gaara said. "You know that hurt, hitting me with a wind attack that contained stupid amounts of chakra," the toad said as it leapt out of the dust cloud with its blade extended. "Gruel, wind style, wind bullet," Gaara said as he fired out another consecutive attack, this time the toad managing to retaliate with water balls of his own. Sasuke watched all of this in awe as he wondered when Naruto became this powerful. "I won't make you rob me of my existence," the raccoon growled out before Gaara appeared on its head and put his hands into the ram seal. "Playing possum technique," Gaara whispered before he leaned forward, clearly unconscious. There was silence for a second before Shukaku's eyes glowed and he yelled, "Yahoo! It's been a while since I was last out," the demon said as it turned its sights on the enemy. "Looks like the container of Shukaku is finally asleep. The only way to win this battle is by waking him up," the toad said, and Naruto nodded. "Let's do this, Gamabunta-san," the blonde said as the giant toad took a great leap, crossing the distance between them and the sand demon in one single leap. Gamabunta tried holding onto Shukaku but failed as his hands slipped down the sand demon body, making him leap back to his former position before the demon retaliated. "I can't get to him if you are not holding him down," Naruto yelled at the toad. "I can't hold him down because I don't have claws or fangs," the toad yelled back as he landed. "We are going to need to use the transformation technique," the toad finished. "All right, boss," Naruto answered as he looked at their foe. "But the thing is, I am bad at doing the transformation technique, so I am going to need you to do it for me," Bunta said, making Naruto raise an eyebrow at the statement. "Okay," the blonde answered. "Let's do this," the toad said as he took another leap again at Shukaku, who readied another wind bullet. "Oh, and kid, you owe me a drink after this," Bunta finished as Naruto yelled, "Transform," making a cloud of smoke cover them. "Growl," was heard as a 9-tailed fox leapt out of the smoke cloud towards the sand demon, who looked surprised at seeing the other-tailed beast, giving Bunta the opportunity to grab onto him and restrain him using his new teeth and claws. Nine tails?" Sasuke asked in confusion as he saw this. "Now," he yelled to Naruto, who created a clone that jumped towards the still Gaara. The sand on Shukaku's head reached up to grab the clone but couldn't get to the main Naruto in time, who had also jumped and using his clone's head as a springboard, propelled himself towards the sleeping redhead. "Wake up, you bastard," Naruto yelled as he sucker punched Gaara across the face. Good, it wasn't too long he slept off. One punch should do the trick, Bunta thought as his transformation dispelled itself, making him let go of Shukaku. "No, I just came out," Shukaku yelled before his eyes dull again, showing he was back in his seal. "Uzumaki," Gaara said as his sand dashed to grab Naruto, restraining him before the blonde could react. "This is your end, Uzumaki Naruto." Gaara was cut off by a cheap shot from Sasuke, who managed to make his way up to Gaara's head after seeing Naruto's position. "Thank me later, Dobi," Sasuke said as he fell unconscious as a result of him giving his all for that last attack before Gaara's sand beast armor started to crumble, making all 3 genins fall towards the earth. "Whatever teme, hump," Naruto retorted before he landed on something that was too soft to be considered earth. Looking at what he was sitting on, he discovered Bunta had held out his palm for the 3 of them to fall onto, though he didn't know why the toad decided to save Gaara. "Thanks, Bunta-san," Naruto said as the toad dropped them gently on the ground and nodded to Naruto as a sign of respect. "Remember, you owe me a drink," Bunta said before he vanished, leaving a smirking Naruto who sat at the base of a tree, clearly exhausted. "All's well that ends well," Naruto thought as he looked over at the other 2 genin and saw Gaara was still awake, glaring at him, though he looked like he couldn't move, which was a relief because Naruto didn't have enough energy for another match with the red head. "I guess we both had it hard, huh? We being Jinchurikis," Naruto started. Time skip. Naruto had just left what remained of the Konoha hospital. He wasn't given good reception like the others, but he didn't care because his wounds healed fast. But even still, he was in a sour mood. He had received the news about the death of the third Hokage from Kakashi in his battle against Orochimaru. While he was a bit angry with the old man for hiding information from him, the man was still his loved one and was the reason why he wasn't killed by the angry mobs that had chased him when he was young. But unlike Sasuke, he wasn't going to swear vengeance against Orochimaru. Nope, the man was already old and besides he had his own goals. The Leaf had won the invasion and Sand had surrendered with Orochimaru retreat. He had a pretty good talk with Gaara and it seemed like he was able to set the boy straight. He then left with his teammates who managed to run away from their fight with Shino and Shikamaru once they saw the crumbling of Shukaku to help their brother. Shikamaru and Shino then proceeded to carry Sasuke and help Naruto walk to the hospital. There he got the bad news and that the third's burial was secluded the next day. Not a bad ending for an invasion and his first battle against a tailed beast. "Oi, Kyuubi, we need to have a talk later on," Naruto said to the beast who didn't reply him but the blonde knew the nine tails heard him loud and clear. "Na Naruto-kun," he turned around as he heard his name. "Oi, Hinata-chan, how are you feeling?" Naruto asked as he smiled at the Hyuga princess. "I am doing good, Naruto-kun. Would you like to join me for ramen, Naruto-kun?" Hinata asked as she turned bright red from the thought. "Sigh, I would have loved to, Hinata-chan, but I have no money," Naruto replied. "Don't worry, Naruto-kun, I will pay for your food," Hinata said as she blushed harder. "Really, thanks, Hinata-chan," Naruto said as he hugged her. Don't faint, Hinata chanted in her mind as she glowed bright red. "Now, let's go eat some ramen," Naruto yelled as he held Hinata's right hand and both of them started walking towards the ramen stand. At the hidden leaf gates, two figures in black cloaks and straw hats stepped through the broken gates and observed the busy nature of the leaf. "Hey, identify yourself," a voice called out to the two of them, making the two figures turn to see a man in Chunin jacket who was standing with a kunai drawn. "I don't think there is need for that," the shorter one of the two said as he made eye contact with the Chunin and red eyes glowed beneath the shadow provided by the straw hat. "Yes, sirs. Please enjoy your stay at the hidden leaf," the Chunin said as his eyes were now dull, showing he was underneath a genjutsu. The two men nodded and jumped away, taking to move on the roofs. Watching all this was Naruto-sensei as he stood on a roof close to the gates. "It's finally time," the man said to himself as red eyes glowed beneath the shadow provided by his hood. "What will you do, Naruto?" the man asked as he looked at the falling sun.
That's all for now. If you enjoy this video, then please like, share and do comments.